YouTube. I'm seeing it.
Oh, well, there you go. We'll see if this works. Dun, dun, dun. So, is it going to work? Are the gods in our favor of YouTube streaming?
Hello, Dev. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you. How are you doing today?
I am great.
Excellent. Happy Wednesday the 2nd version of the stream.
All right.
Wait until a couple people join and we will see if we get some people in. Do we have audio? Are we good? Good. Excellent.
Yep.
All right, so I wiped my computer a few days ago and formatted it, and apparently I haven't tested anything yet. So we're back in business. So we're happy. Seymour?
Yep. I'm here.
Perfect. Good, good, good. We can hear him. All right, so everyone's happy. We were back at it. So before third time's a charm, exactly. So how are things with you? How's the tanks been doing? Are they getting more love these days, or?
They are definitely getting more love. I'm home. There's less automation going on because, my job requires me to be on the road for a significant amount of time. So they are getting more love. They're getting a lot less automation, more love. No auto feeders, like daily feeding. That glass doesn't get as dirty. Yeah, I sometimes pull up. The tanks are behind me, so sometimes I pull my laptop and I work right by the tank. So they do get more. They do get more attention.
That's good. No, so you just had less automation. This is from you, who's a tech junkie. Tell me more.
Yes. So, well, so all right. Let's start with where we are now. So I am currently using the Hydros controller. That's where I am.
Mm-hmm.
But even before I swapped from the Apex to the Hydros, I wasn't taking full advantage of the Apex and everything it had. I mean, I had all the modules, but the best way to describe it is if I had just turned everything on my tank on, my tank would still function because, my dosing, everything was smart in its own respect.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I was going with less automation, making my own fish food, hand feeding, frozen. So it was less automation.
Yeah, that's good. Now, when you go back on the road again, are you going to re-automate everything, or are you going to try and keep it a little more simpler?
I think I'm going to keep it a little simpler.
Yeah.
Might go with a little bit automation depending on, how long I have to travel. I don't think I'll go back to traveling as much as in the past, but
Mm-hmm.
I'll go with more automation, but less than I had before. At one point, I think this, like every function of my tank was controlled by my controller.
Yes.
So if your controller went down, everything on your tank went down. And we all had that moment when I was thousands of miles away, controller went down, and my wife wasn't happy about having to run extension cords across the living room in the apartment to plug stuff in. So
Understandable. Yeah, there's something good to be said about having every little piece of it be smart. That way, you don't really have a single failure point. Like that definitely does have its own advantages, right? Where if one thing fails, you're not buggered. So, it's lots of
yeah,
little planning. Like I know, even just like one example, I know a lot of people like the JHL doser. Someone was asking me the other day, should I get the standalone or the other one? Like, no, I'm just like, nope, buy the standalone. Spend the extra $50. You don't have to worry about anything else. So it will always work, right? So,
is there a GHL doser that's
yeah,
only works with the? Oh, I didn't know
yeah.
that.
There's a slave one and a standalone one. Like
Ah,
personally, I would always want to do the standalone just because it gives you that extra level redundancy, right?
I had a GHL doser, and I just bought the GHL doser. I didn't even know there was a. Okay, you know what? I think something just clicked in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I
Nice.
did. Yeah, I see. Okay,
Yep. All right.
interesting.
I know. See, it's good. A couple of people asking how the pH is. So it is getting a little better every day. So keep in mind, I realized afterwards that my 4-year-old expired media, so mileage may vary, but the day before it was 7.87 was my low, then it was 7.97, then it went down 7.9, 7.97, then last night it only dropped down to 8.01. So I'm not getting like crazy high boosts, but it's slowly nudging it up overall, and my lows are getting higher, which I think is a big benefit. So hopefully we
I
get there.
I watched your video on that, and the impressive thing was the low. Like when you can keep the low that high,
Mm-hmm.
during the day it'll still climb the same amount, but when you've bottomed out at more than 8, the next day you're going to hit 8.3, 8.4.
Yep.
I, I got tired of replacing the media, Dev, so I might try your recirculating method.
It lasts
Um,
longer than just straight through, right? Because you're have much less CO2 concentration that you're running through in the first place. So I mean, it literally cost me like $8 to build it. Like it was like dirt cheap. So I think once I get better CO2 media in it, I think I'll actually see a big boost as well. I still can't believe I bought that freaking thing and been using it for so long, and it was like 3 years expired and I never noticed until now. It's just like,
I tried putting the skimmer line outside, which worked fine.
mm-hmm.
CO2 media worked the best. I tried, but the media was exhausted within 5 days, and it was going to be too expensive. I
Mm-hmm.
tried putting it through a CO2 scrubber and putting the line outside, but in the end, I think I just went with calc
Yep.
and putting the skimmer line outside. It was the best balance between less work for me
Yep.
and um, and not having to replace media. I know you can get the media cheaper, but it's
Mm-hmm.
one more consumable you have to replace every
Yeah.
week.
Now, for the scrubbing one, I do kind of agree. I think recirculating is the smarter way to go because you get so much more life out of the media. I think for yeah, see, like I'm still on the fence because right now I have it sucking outside air and recirculating is kind of a hybrid of the two, and I'd probably get a slightly better pH boost out of just recirculating. But again, I still think there's advantages to fresh air into the tank and everything else. I don't know. It's constant. I just do little tests constantly just to see what's better and what works and stuff.
Do you see a difference with your skimmer performance when when you've attached like the outside line and I think you have a pretty long run from what I remember. You're going.
Yep.
Do you notice a difference in performance with your skimmer?
Not really, but I also ran a larger hose. I ran half-inch hose, and it only went 3/8. So I went up a size to kind of compensate for that extra run, or at least minimize it.
And you have a Nios, which is a little bit oversized.
Mm-hmm.
Just that was a long-winded way of just bringing up, like, if you have an undersized skimmer and you're using like tiny heroes, or you're pulling 10 feet, you are going to see like a dip in performance of your skimmer because you're kind of restricting air.
Yeah.
So if you have a DC skimmer, you might have to run it a little higher. But I think for having a wider diameter hose, or having like an oversized AC skimmer,
Mm-hmm.
that usually more than compensates for it.
It agrees. Okay, so John Reefer, Vermont. So what's the theory of why does outside air not be enough? It definitely makes a difference. I had probably a zero point 0.1 boost or 0.8, 0.1 boost from using just outside air alone. So there's a few considerations. One is what's the CO2 in your house, because the more that's in the air with all that surface tension and movement, it's going to work its way into the tank. So if you have a lower CO2 in your house, summertime windows are open, probably not a big difference. In the wintertime when it's all sealed up, there's definitely a bigger impact. Now, outside air has less CO2 than inside air, obviously, because it's fresh air, right? It's usually around 350, 400-ish ppm, where inside a home can be 8, 900, 1500, like it's a lot more. So you're taking lower concentration CO2 air, mixing with tank water, which helps remove it from the tank. Now I put the scrubber on that. So again, you could do it inside your house, but you're scrubbing, 2-3 times more of the CO2 out of the air that's going to your tank. Where if you're doing it from outside air, you're giving less work for the media to do, so it lasts longer. So you definitely will get a boost from outside air. That is free. There's no consumables. There's no media, and 100% should do it if you have an easy way to get a line out. With the extra media on it, it's just taken to the next level, adding that extra level of boost. Now, recirculating skimmer is a good idea too if you don't have an easy way, or you don't want to drill holes in your wall and go to that crazy extremes. It's kind of the easier way of doing it.
I've had this conversation with Greg Carroll a few
Mm-hmm.
times. So you and I live in winter areas where our homes are sealed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think for us, like, it's different because, you live in somewhere, let's say Florida or California, you kind of have you have your windows open longer periods the year that we're either kind of too hot during the summer and it's humid, or in the winter it's just too cold. So we tend to have less air. I think people in other parts of the country don't have the issue that
Yeah.
we do. Maybe if you're in Florida and you have a system that's constantly exchanging air, or a entire home like a AC system.
Hmm.
So I think this might be, like, depending on where in the country. I know people say, hey, I don't worry about pH, but it could be really specific to where you are. I'm
Yeah.
in New York City. I don't know if pulling outside air, we just have more people, so we have more CO2 concentration. I don't know. I'm actually going to order some stuff from, I'm going to do some stuff with to try to monitor the CO2. Or I just live in an apartment with my family and we just have, we just have more CO2. So I think your CO2 concentration and therefore your pH is
Hmm.
very situation, location specific. Can
Yes,
be.
for sure. And if you are in, like, Florida, Arizona, somewhere it's super hot, you're always going to have the windows closed, right? The odds are the air conditioner's pumping, or in Texas or somewhere, right? And then where I am, okay, my windows are open now. It's lovely out, sunshine, but summertime, I mean, wintertime, it's all closed up tight. So it's kind of seasonal. Um, my tank has had like chronically low pH just because I have so many fish in there. I have a lot of fish, a lot of Lamose breathing, plus the home more sealed up, and plus using a calcium reactor. So I have all types of things against me putting my CO2 down. And then,
One of one other thing, Dev, the
mm-hmm.
spouse. I don't know. I hope my wife isn't listening, but the spouse factor. My wife is always cold, and I'm always hot. So one of the first things I do when I get up in the morning is I open the windows,
Mm-hmm.
and so we have this, like, we have this battle where, like, I want the windows open because I'm always hot, and so it also depends. It might not even be a location. It could be just a spouse or family issue where, you know,
Well, you could have pets, for more people breathing. You walk by, open up your window, your wife walks by, she closes the window. It's back and forth.
that happens all the time. That happens all the time.
Yep, 100% believe it. So, yeah, I don't know. So, I don't think, if fresh air free, 100% do that if you can. But if not, then this is where the CO2 media, the soda lime comes in. And I'm doing both because the more I can do, the better. And then the other big step that's happening pretty quick is the air exchanger in the house. So that will just lower the whole CO2 concentration in the house, which will be good for the people and the tank. So, boom, win-win.
Air exchanger. Okay.
I know. Yep, so that's good. So that basically, the one that I got is called a HRV, like a heat recovery ventilator. So it mixes your inside air basically through a radiator to preheat or cool the outside air. So it's just more efficient. You don't really lose
Uh,
much of the temperature.
I see.
Yep.
I gotcha. Okay.
So it's good. I think it was John Reefer Vermont that was asking about adding more oxygen concentration. So adding oxygen to the tank doesn't necessarily negate or remove the CO2 the in your water. So you don't really get the benefit that way. What you need to do is you want to remove the CO2 from your water. So by introducing less, or hydroxides can help remove it, or something like calc to kind of like bind those and break down that carbonic acid in the water, which boosts your pH, or you just put less in the tank to begin with.
I feel like you and I are on the same wavelength because I think it's recently I was reading something. I don't know. Like recently, I've just decided like I'm gonna read more like scientific stuff, like the
Mm-hmm.
hard stuff by like Randy Holmes Farley would write on advanced reefing. And I always thought like higher CO2 meant less oxygen. I didn't realize it was they're totally independent of each other. So, sometimes I'll see where, people will say like, hey, like bubbling, you add more oxygen to the water, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll assume that, hey, that increases the pH. So, yeah, I've tried bubbling in those, and it's great for some things, but it doesn't
Well,
affect your pH.
are you bubbling in outside air, or are you bubbling in the same room air that you have, so you're not really getting lower concentration added to the water?
I tried bubbling with outside air,
Mm-hmm.
but I also learned that the skimmer I was using at the time was a great skimmer. It was a Tunzi, but it wasn't the best at pulling air. So right now I have a Royal exclusive with a Red Dragon pump that just pulls a crazy amount of air. I think I have an air meter somewhere where I've even measured it.
Hmm.
And so far, the Royal exclusive and like the Vertex are the ones that are always at the top of the list of pulling air. So I think if you have a skimmer, not a long, the bubbling, I think an oversized skimmer, works a lot better than,
Yeah.
having like bubbling. I tried it.
Well,
I tried pulling in outside air with a, but it didn't do much. It
yeah.
didn't do much for my pH.
Okay. Yes. Okay, quick shout out, John Reefer Vermont. Thank you for the super chat. Deposit required to get into Devin's brainwave as well. Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. I don't have my fancy little pop up animation. I have to recreate that. I'm sorry, I formatted my computer, but thank you. Okay, so with skimmer, so Aaron in the chat had another good point. Is I do have the chat. It did port over. Yes. The surface agitation. So the more surface tension or the more surface agitation is also promoting that gas exchange, right? So if you have tons of waves and tons of power heads at the surface, it's gonna transfer a lot more, CO2 or lack thereof via the surface of your water. I know, like back in the day with when I had a planted tank, you actually would have all your flow lower, so you didn't lose the CO2 you're purposely injecting into the water.
I see.
Uh-huh.
Oh, is that why for a lot of planted tanks you don't necessarily have like overflow boxes because you lose CO2 by, when water goes down the
Yeah,
ah,
yeah. There's all those little
you know what?
things, right?
Oh, okay. It's clicking now. It's clicking now.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. There's a lot of little things at play there.
Mm.
So I don't know. Humidity control can change the aquarium bills. So someone else was saying about the humidity of your home can affect pH as well, which is interesting because I've never actually looked into that one.
I have high, I don't know if it's a Northeast thing, but I have high humidity is always high.
Mm-hmm.
Our humidity in the summer is really high.
Mm-hmm.
I always, let me just, I always thought I had higher evaporation in the summer when the weather was warmer because I
Yep.
equated warmer weather. It turns out it's because I was using a cooling fan. I
Mm-hmm.
actually get way less evaporation in the summer because it's more humid. In the
Mm-hmm.
winter, when we have the heating,
Yep.
it's drier
Yeah.
and you get way more evaporation. I don't know if it affects the pH. That's something I never really paid attention to. That'd be interesting. Maybe I'll have to look into that some more. But I just get in the summers here in the north, like it gets crazy humid.
Mm-hmm.
60% sometime,
Yeah.
65% inside.
The drier the air is, the more it's going to suck the moisture out of it. So that would make sense to evaporate more then. Someone else was. What's another good question? Drama D thought higher ORP meant cleaner water. So using UV or ozone gives you clearer water. I don't know if it's cleaner, but it's clearer. So ORP is your oxidation reduction potential, I believe, or something very similar to that. Basically, it's your water's ability to oxidize or kind of get rid of things. So it is kind of a cleanliness where if it's a really low ORP, generally you have a lot more organics in the water. And if you have higher ORP, you generally have less. And organics are the things that like yellow your water and that kind of pigmentation. So when you have a higher ORP, generally via ozone or UV, it gives you that really crystal clear, kind of cleaner water. So I don't know if it's quite like cleaner or dirtier, but in a roundabout way, kind of, sort of, yeah.
This is one of those topics that kind of go over my head.
Mm-hmm.
I did know that when I ran an ozone, that was the clearest water. My skimmer underperformed. I don't know if it just broke the things down into, so you had to retune your skimmer, but
Mm-hmm.
it was like, I remember the first night after I ran ozone, it's almost like I didn't realize if there was water in the tank. Like I was poking, and after like a week of using ozone for like an hour or two every night, the water was so clear.
It's not the best. Speaking of ozone, guess what I just got?
Ah,
I'm excited to get this baby installed. I'm gonna do it probably
what
like next year or
happened?
two.
You know what? I had that unit, and I don't remember. It's someone I don't remember who I traded it to for something else. That's the Poseidon from DRS, right?
Yeah. This is, yep, the
Yeah,
Poseidon, the Ozone Tech 200. So I'm stoked for this. Okay, so what
yes.
I learned, this I'll probably do a video on this soon, but so this baby can do up to 500 gallons. So my tank's about 200, so roughly run it at like probably 4 or 5. We'll see. But yeah, I'm excited to check this baby out. It's gonna be good.
And
I've
I
been
think,
eyeing it for like years, so
and I think that's the one where you can, if you've had it for 5 years and it starts to underperform, you can just replace the $50 ozone generating part in it. You don't have to get an entirely new unit.
yeah, which is cool, right? And then you're not chucking and getting rid of stuff, you know, not throwing stuff in the landfill. You can actually replace the generator in it, which is pretty cool. So,
Yep.
yep, nice beefy dial. Actually has numbers. My cheap one has like no actual numbers or indication of what your setting here are. Like all these little janky things. It worked, but I'm really curious to see how like a legit proper one kind of compares to it.
Yeah,
So I'm excited
you're
for it.
gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Oof, I'm excited for it. So it's
Um,
gonna be good.
I saw a comment from Aaron where he says more humid air is more dense and harder to dispel CO2 and raise pH. So
Makes sense.
I'll have to pay more attention to it.
Yeah. Question for you, since you are a gear junkie, did you ever have an air dryer or did you just have an ozone generator? Because you said you had the same one, right?
I didn't. Yes, I had the air dryer because I bought a kit from BRS that
Yeah.
came with the drying media, and I ended up having to in the summers. That's was my first idea that hey, something's going on here with the humidity.
Mm-hmm.
In the summers, I had to bake that thing like in the winter. It went like the entire winter without the beads changing color, and then in the summer, you kind of you can bake the beads and reuse them. I think that's the one I had. I
Mm-hmm.
was doing that thing like every 3 weeks.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because it was so humid and it was so I did have it. I think it was a kit from BRS at the
Okay.
time
I
that I
actually have
used.
the bead ones from way back in the day in my shed somewhere, now that you mention it.
Mhm.
But one day I think I'm going to break down and get the auto drying one so I never have to deal with it. It's not cheap, but it'd be nice to have. I I just need crystal clear water.
I, I'm gonna get back into ozone.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna go with a Poseidon. I might just go with one of the cheaper units because
Mm-hmm.
I'm only gonna do it for maybe just a few days a week.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll set up a feed mode where I just press it myself and it'll run for like 2 hours and then turn itself off. But this is something I'm gonna do. I've been thinking about.
Okay, so currently I do it in the middle of the night from like 1 a.m. to 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. Now I'm a little bit curious to try experimenting with running, a higher concentration for just like an hour or two, or doing a really low concentration just like constantly, and see what kind of difference it has. I've been curious about this.
At the time, I was so scared of ozone because I read so many bad things about it. I
Mm-hmm.
decided to run it at night when we were all sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I never was brave enough to, um, yeah, I was never brave enough to try it any other time. Um, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I never had to use carbon when I was using it. Definitely the par numbers were better because the water was so crystal clear. And I use white buckets I purposely use white buckets for water changes.
So you could tell.
And you couldn't tell the difference when you've been running carbon for a few weeks. You can't tell the difference between dirty water and clear water
Yeah.
when you've taken it out of the tank.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So one thought or consideration is with so someone's asking, is there any like safety concerns and whatnot if you do excessive amounts of it? Yes, anything excess is trouble. It has a very short half-life, so it's if you're as long as you're using like an appropriate amount, it's going to be gone in a relatively short amount of time because it oxidizes and gets used up very quickly. Now if you are worried, you can put like carbon on top of your skimmer vents, and that carbon will absorb any residual ozone. Now that I have the recirculating soda lime, I'm a little bit curious to see if there's going to any reaction or if anything will happen there, but no air is leaving my skimmer, so it's technically already being filtered out. So that's another kind of benefit of the recirculation is there's no air leaving it. So that's kind of a bonus I just thought of, as long as there's no like bad reaction with soda lime, which I'm hoping there isn't. From what I could tell, I can find anything, but I don't think it's very commonly studied. So far, so
Okay.
good.
I think it's also necessary for us to mention that your skimmer has to be ozone safe,
Oh
and
yes,
any
for sure.
fittings.
Yeah,
I think the Poseidon comes with like Kynar fittings that are ozone resistant and ozone resistant tubing.
I
So it's
betcha.
not like you can just do like regular airline tubing and just put it in your, it's going to degrade very fast.
Yeah, exactly. So 100% make sure your skimmer is ozone safe. If not, you'll get weird cracks in it, and it will break down the acrylic over time. So yeah, it does smells like lightning type of thing. That's a good way to do it, like that staticky kind of smell.
Yeah.
If you can smell it,
Um,
turn down a bit.
one last thing about this. Someone said it the proper way. I forgot who is to run in an ozone reactor. I've done it in my skimmer. Like I said, I had to retune my skimmer because the skim made it wasn't pulling that thick sludge anymore. It
Mm-hmm.
was more lighter tea color no matter what I did. So I
Mm-hmm.
just adjusted the skimmer for the way it skimmed, and it was fine. I didn't have any nutrient issues. I didn't have any spikes. It was just different, not
Yeah.
necessarily better or worse, just different.
No, that's fair. Um, yeah, I don't know. I can't say there's a big difference that I've noticed, but maybe I just haven't ran a high enough concentration for it to make a big impact on it. 'Cause I hear some people say it affects the skimmer performance, but there's been nothing that's been overly obvious to me. Now, someone else was asking, is there any benefits other than water clarity? Big one for me, gets rid of smells. If there's any funky, fishy smells or anything, it will help get rid of that. Get rid of the oceany smells and just like kills all those organics that cause it. And if my tank has any fishy smells, my wife gives me heck constantly, so that is another huge benefit for me. So I'm actually going to throw my old one on the office tank again, just to make sure it's all pristine and sunshine and roses.
Yep, I agree 100%.
Mm-hmm. Um, Red Sea makes an ozone carbon. It's finer.
Mm.
Interesting. I've never heard of that one. Soda lime is fine as long as it doesn't get in the tank. There you go. And you don't get cut. You don't buy cut rate stuff. So have you tried different soda limes? That's something else. I've only tried my one, bucket O expired soda lime. Have you tried different brands, or have you noticed a big difference from different ones?
I have not noticed a big difference. I bought the BRS stuff, and then I forgot who it was. It was a group of us, I think on Reef Central or Reef to Reef, where I we shared like, hey, here's the stuff. I found it on a website,
Mm-hmm.
and I it looked the same, and there we were getting it so cheap that even if it degraded a little bit faster, we were still way ahead of buying it. Um, you know, buying it in from BRS.
Yep.
So it said soda lime. It performed like just like what I got from BRS. It smelled the same. It looked the same.
Mm-hmm. So this is because this is what I've been debating, because there's stuff designed for rebreathers for diving, right? There's medical stuff for anesthesia machines. There's like so many different types and brands, and I've been a bit curious to see if there's a big difference between all the different ones.
I think BRS sells the medical grade one. I think they
Okay.
say it, and I would trust them if they're saying they're selling the medical grade one.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the stuff I bought wasn't medical grade, but I got it. But funny enough, one of the reasons I decided to take my CO2 scrubber at the time, that brand went off the market or we couldn't find it anymore. So I don't know if they stopped producing it for whatever reason, but I couldn't. It was just going to be so expensive to run a CO2 scrubber without getting that cheap bulk stuff. So I just stopped.
That's fair. I think I'm gonna try the BRS one next, whenever they get like the bigger pouches back in stock, and see how that kind of compares, or if I get a bigger boost in recirculating mode. So curious. That, and there's some other diving brand that I was talking to Aaron before, and he kept recommending. So I found some of that's on sale. So I was like, maybe I'll try that too. So we'll see.
Well, send me a link. I'm interested. I still have my CO2 scrubber. I'm always
Yep,
willing to try.
it's good. It's a good experiment, right? Do another. Yeah, well, might as well talk about it. This too. Some earlier in the chat, someone's joking about having like a bazillion dosing heads for like doing the trace elements, the reef moonshiner stuff. So I've been playing with that the last month or two, and it makes me laugh because my tank is so automated. I'm back to doing all my little daily additions as well again. But
Man, I have. How many dosing heads do you have? Let's start with that.
On my tank,
Yes.
9.
Nine.
I
Hmm.
have calcium reactor. So there's 1, 2 for auto water changes. Um, so 3, and then 4 trace elements. Yeah, 8. Yeah,
I
8, 9.
I think I had seven because I had the three for Triton. I was combining the Triton 3A and 3B. I was using one for the calc reactor, one for Acropower, one for Reef Biofuel, which is a little bit of carbon dosing from
Mm-hmm.
Brightwell, and then the other one, I forgot what I was doing with the other one. Um, hmm.
Yeah.
But now I'm down a few because I'm no longer using the dough, so I'm down a few. So I
That's
only
fair.
have five now.
Look at all the stuff I'm dosing daily now. This is on top of my bulk trace elements and stuff that are already in there. So
Really?
yeah, this is another interesting rabbit hole, but so I have like the coral aminos, the Chato grow, whatever Brightwell's bulk trace something or other. Can't see the bottle right now, but as like bulk stuff, and then I've been using all the individual elements to kind of fine tweak them. So it's like, oh, like 0.15 mils a day or 1.5 mils of this one and 6, zero point 0.6 mils of that one. And so I've been trying to like super dial in the trace elements and then see how the tank does. So this is my other latest rabbit hole of dosing so many things.
I kind of the best, maybe not the most exotic or the best in terms of expensive coral, but the best tank I think I ever had was a Zeovit tank.
Mm-hmm.
And probably one of the reasons a Zeovit tank is because you're there to dose stuff every day. So you look at the tank every day,
Yeah.
which is, um, I think I've heard a few people say maybe that's one of the reasons. That's a hidden reason why Zeovit tanks do so well is
100%
because
is.
you're there looking at dosing this thing every day. So you're
Mm-hmm.
seeing. It's not like you go 2 3 days without looking, at your tank, and then you're like, oh, that Monty died. You're forced to dose. And it's very hard to automate some of that Zeovit stuff. You
Mm-hmm.
can, but you have to put some effort into it. So, um, yeah,
Yeah.
I like Zeovit. It was a lot. It became a lot, especially as life became busy. But I think one of the things with Zeovit and maybe Moonshiners is you're just looking at your stuff every day.
I 100% agree with you, and I think that is a good chunk of it because I pay a lot more close attention to it because one, I dose these daily, and two, it's actually making me ICP test my tank a little more and tweak things more often. Now, Tracy, thank you for the $10 super chat. Forgot to give last week. Awesome topic. Thanks. Thank you as well, good sir. Much appreciated. So 100% agree. You are paying much more close attention to your tank, and I've done two ICP tests since I started doing this. Like every couple of months, I'm like, oh, do another ICP test, and as I'm tweaking these because I'm dosing, chromium and rubidium and everything else directly, right? So you pay more attention, and it also made me realize that my nutrients are off the chart. Well, that's mainly with Mastronic because I actually test them now. So like my nutrients were sky high, so I'm actually getting my nitrates and my phosphates in check, right? So it's making me pay more attention and make me pay attention to my parameters more, so get more in check. So that being said, my tank is looking pretty darn good right now. Like my acros are growing nicely, like they're happy, the colors are great. Now, is it some straight trace elements? Is it because I'm paying more attention to my tank? It's probably a mix of the two, but it definitely makes you pay more attention, which is a
You do more.
solid side benefit.
I probably need to do more ICP testing.
Yep.
Um, but I'm doing Triton, which probably should
Mm-hmm.
take care of, and then I do water changes, even when my nutrients weren't. But I feed so much because when I'm making fish food, I put everything in it. Like I literally go to bulk resupplier saltwater aquariums and make sure I have everything, every kind of fish food they have.
Mm-hmm.
I have it. So when I'm feeding like a 1 inch cube to the tank, it has the entire, you name it, you name a random fish food. Like just give me a fish food or anything.
Reef nutrition.
Oh, which ones? Because there are a ton of reef nutrition I have
The
here. I have the
oyster
medium,
feast.
have the small, have the
Okay,
A, have
I
the
got those
B.
ones.
I put everything in it.
Do you ever use the oyster feast? I love doing that. It makes your tank like a big snow globe. It's like the flow beads. You can see them flying everywhere.
Yes, and the fish Antheus love it.
Oh yeah, they do love it. I don't know. I get happy every time I dump that in because I just love seeing it fly all over the place.
Mhm.
Can anyone recommend a good inexpensive calcium reactor? What do you think?
I've only ever used I've used three calcium reactors.
Mm-hmm.
I've used like a really old Geo model, which was okay. My favorite is the Vertex. Just sad that they went out of business.
Yep.
I have an Aquamax unit, which is the one, and it's a good entry level unit. Um, I hate thumb screws. I I don't know. It's because I have big, fat, thick fingers. I just hate. But I think you don't fill it up that often. Where I think it's
A
just
couple
I
once
just
a
hate
year.
doing it. Yeah, but the Aquamax one,
Mm-hmm.
um, I've used it, and I think it's a good entry level unit. And what I like about the Aquamax unit is the pump is suspended, so you don't get a lot of. So yeah, I don't know if you can see my NEM tank. I had it
Yep.
sitting in my NEM tank. So the oxo silicone drying mats that you kind of use to dry dishes, these silicone mats. I
Mm-hmm.
just cut one to size, put it on the floor of the because wood amplifies sound, and once you put it on, like you get no sound at all, and it works fine. It's
Yeah.
not a good cal. It's I'm not gonna go out and say the Aquamax is as good as the Vertex, but
Yeah.
um, it's a good entry level. If you're looking for a good entry level one, it's fine.
Yeah, I would say Aquamax is good. I don't know if Reef Octopus is entry level or higher up, but I mean, my buddy bought that one and it looks pretty decent. Um, yeah, I don't know if I don't think I would 3D print a calcium reactor. I don't know about the CO2 and printing. I wouldn't trust it long term. Definitely want acrylic or something for that. But that being said, you could like gettily make one with just like any reactor and a little pump and kind of inject it. Like it wouldn't be the prettiest, but I'm sure you could totally make one because at its essence, a calcium reactor is a chamber with a recirculating pump that has a port to inject CO2 in, and then a port to put water in, and a port for water to come out. So I mean, in
Yeah.
essence, it's actually a very simple contraption. So you could totally make one.
Geo has some low entry level ones.
Hmm.
The Aquamax is a good
Yeah.
cheap one. You can probably find a used Vertex one.
Mm-hmm.
Those are probably but I think you can find a good calcium reactor that won't break the bank. I'm a big fan these days of the Reef Octopus ones. I haven't had the pleasure of using one, but if
Mm-hmm.
I my next calcium reactor is probably going to be Reef Octopus.
Yeah.
No thumb screws, and the Varios pump,
Yep.
which is silent, is yeah.
I really like my Geo one, but it wasn't just like a standard one. I put a DC pump on it and fine tune that baby, customize it to make it silent. But yeah, I 100% agree. Like DC pump on it is the way to go. I had some ghetto one back in the day, and same thing. I bought some tiny DC pump and like retrofitted it just because I wanted it quiet.
You had a Vectra put on your calcium reactor, right?
Yeah, I did.
I remember you were telling me. Yeah, okay.
Little S1, S2,
Uh,
whatever it is on there. Yeah, it's great. It's super quiet,
yeah,
which I love.
yeah. Greg Carroll is here saying thumb screws are the greatest thing. He is the guy that just absolute like he doesn't. If there is a piece of equipment and it has a thumb screw, like Greg is going to avoid it.
Yeah, that's funny. But yeah, the Reef Octopus, I believe it's a screw top lid, so you're safe. Yeah.
Yes,
Now, okay, question. Calc reactor. Someone was asking about the VAS K1. That one is popular. That should be
that's what I'm
solid.
using.
Yep. I have the
Solid.
ice cap one, but yeah, if I didn't have the ice cap, I probably would have went with the VAS because I mean they're both good ones.
Yours is continuous. It continue. Yeah. Um, yeah, and I clean it like every 6 months,
Oh,
and
I
it
do mine
works.
monthly. You do yours at every
Really,
yeah every 1 to 2 months. I clean mine.
I've cleaned mine once, and I've had it. You know, you can tell you can tell sometimes when you refill it, and
Hmm.
I always have to seem to waste a little bit of calc too. So when I put calc in, like I'm using the Brightwell calc plus. And I
Yeah.
think because it has magnesium, so I think there's
Oh,
more,
does
you
it?
get more
Hmm.
stuff at the bottom. You have more stuff at the bottom that maybe doesn't mix. Maybe if you use the BRS, which is pharmaceutical grade.
Hmm.
But I find at about 5 or 6 months, the stuff at the bottom doesn't go down anymore. You kind of have to clean it. And you'll notice immediately because then you get a huge pH boost from whatever calc is in there immediately. So I'm a fan of the Avast. And I think the motor is going to be so easy to replace. It's continuous duty. And I'm thinking like
Hmm.
once every 2 years, you have to replace the motor.
Is
Works
it?
for me.
How much is the motor? Is it very much or is it cheap?
I don't know.
Fair
I have
enough.
no idea. But
Yeah.
the reactor was like 220, 230.
Hmm. Not
Mm-hmm.
too bad.
Nice, slim, 4-inch diameter.
Yeah.
Sits right up nice and tall. You just attach a John Guest fitting with the Versa pushing water through
Hmm.
it.
I've debated getting one for my big tank for pH benefits. However, there's like no room in my stand anymore. I don't know where I'd fit it.
I'm limited by the amount of water I evaporate.
Hmm.
So now so in the winter, I can go about 2.2 liters a day of evaporation. In the summer, so I'm already down to like 1.6. That is getting that we're out of the winter and we're not running indoor heat as
Yep.
much anymore.
Hmm.
I'm down to about 1.6.
Hmm.
So I imagine by the time we get to the summer, probably be down to about a liter, 1.2 liters. So I'm just limited by, how much water I evaporate.
Yep. No, that's fair. Do how often do you have to top off your calcium or your calc reactor?
I probably do it once every 2 months. I try
Is
not to
it?
put too much. Yeah, but I try not to put too much in it. You can put more in it, but I try not to put too much in it. I've seen people that put like so much at the bottom. Like, I think Greg uses the Tunzi one, the little Tunzi one.
Hmm.
Uh, I think Greg puts so much stuff in it. I don't put that much
So
when I'm topping it off.
I put a cup in mine, like a cup,
Measure.
a measuring cup, a calc. And then
Oh,
after like I'm gonna say about 2 weeks, I'll see my elk starting to drop, and I know I need to like top it off a little more.
do you see actual stuff still in the bottom?
Yeah, no, there's still stuff in the bottom, but my alkalinity is dropping, so I know it's not as potent anymore. But mine's continuous duty. Like I think I'm feeding 2 meals a minute through it, 24/7
Oh, I found that when I did that, I got too much crust at the edge.
of the tank, or like
Uh,
the mix, the thing.
the mix, yeah. I thought that was because the continuous duty. I don't know. Um, I was watching a Jake Adams video and I saw that he put an elbow with a downpipe. So
Yeah.
I tried that and I actually get less crust now.
Mm.
Also, mine has the ability to add a pH probe and I just left that port open. So I blocked that up. Um, you know what? I might try. You know what, Devin, that might be something I'll try. I'll try like the 1 or 2 mils a minute throughout the entire day. I just thought like, when you have that drop that's right about to go over the edge, it
Hmm.
would probably just, encrust there, and
You
that was my thinking.
you do get a little bit of a buildup over time, right? That's why every like month or two I take the whole thing out. I put it in the bathtub and I dump it down the toilet, put it in the bathtub, fill it up, swish it around, dump it out again. I just do that every like I'm gonna say like 4 to 6 weeks ish, and then it's all like pristine and new again, and everything's rinsed out and is good, and then I just refill it.
Every time I clean my skimmer cup, I bought like an additional the way the Avast is, it comes with like a little um like it's already PVC glued. It comes with a barb. So I went and found the entire union and found that union, and
Hmm.
so every time I'm cleaning my skimmer cup, that's part of the thing where I screw that off, take it, or just stick my finger in there and just clean whatever crust. So that's just part of my skimmer maintenance.
Hmm.
Yeah, the reason I remember is because my tank stinks. The skimmer stinks. And I got a little trick from Greg again there. Whenever I am my skimmer cup, I tip a little bit of calc.
So
Whenever I empty it, it works.
I saw someone post that. I actually tried it last time, but I wasn't sure if it made a big difference or not. So I was still
It
on the fence on
oh
it.
for me, it's the issue is now there's more work to clean your skimmer cup
Hmm.
because you have like the dry skim, the sulfur, and then you have calc sitting in there not moving for maybe a week or two. So you kind of have to maybe now you have to use a little vinegar or citric acid when you're cleaning your skimmer cup. But
Hmm.
in terms of it stinking, big difference. A
Interesting.
big difference. Yeah, I
Hmm.
just tip a little bit of calc. I have the Brightwell like right there, and I just tip a little bit in the skimmer cup.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay, I'll try.
Works.
I'll try it again next time I clean it.
Yep.
I'll give it a good sniff
Brooke
before.
explained the science. He explained the science to me, and it kind of went over my head.
Hmm.
I think he said the high pH
Mm-hmm.
lets like the sulfur bacteria doesn't decompose.
Hmm.
Don't quote me on that because that just sounds like
In
I
the
just
history
said that in
books.
Greg's voice in my head.
Yeah,
But that's how it was explained to me.
I heard Greg. Uh, okay, so other, talking about like skimmer smells. So ozone, one of the main reasons I use it is because your skimmate is much less stinky. Now the recirculating thing that I built on top of it, two other benefits. One, again, it traps in anything, so you're not getting any lingering funk coming out of it. And two, it actually makes the skimmer quieter because you don't hear the bubbles as much because it's like a big muffler on top of it. So I was like, two extra little bonus benefits that I've realized over the last few days since I built it last week. Seymour was the first reefer I ever met in Manhattan aquariums. There you go.
Can
That's
I
from
tell you a
Brett.
story,
Yeah, you
Dev?
can. You can.
Dev, I spend because I don't go anywhere. So when I leave the house to go hang out or do anything, I actually go to the fish store.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just my thing now. I don't go hang out. We don't go to restaurants. I take
Mm-hmm.
the kids and I go to the fish store.
Yeah.
And there's been so many people who like the people in the fish store are like, what is going on? They're like, hey, that's all because you're in a mask now, so no one can see your face. But I guess my voice and my
Yeah.
wife gets a hit out of it. So Saturday I was in the fish store with the employees, and this guy gave me $20. He was like, "Here's an in-person super chat,"
That's
and
awesome.
the people at the store were like, "What is that? Like, what's going on?" But whoever that was, thank you very much.
Awesome.
That was wonderful. But
That's cool.
yeah, you have people. Yeah, they're always. I'm surprised people. Imagine you're a celebrity in
You have
Canada.
a very not really though. I can only think maybe like 3 or 4 times someone been like, "Hey, Reef Dudes," but like if I go to aquarium show, then people know me. But like locally, and not everyone knows about YouTube and all that jazz. But you have a very recognizable voice, so I could totally see that. You do. It's unique. It's recognizable. Like if I heard you talking across the room, I'd be like, where's Seymour? Right?
Yeah, one guy was like, "I don't know. Your voice sounds like oh," and he was telling his wife, and my wife was like, "Why? What?" She found it. I get teased about it now. She finds it hilarious.
That's awesome. It's fun. I don't know. It's cool. It's like internet community. Greg, that's a real reefer in person super chat. That is crazy. That is cool though. That's awesome.
Yeah,
No YouTube stealing any of it either.
yeah. There was a. I bought everyone at the store like coffee, drinks.
Nice. That's
I
cool.
appreciate it. Yep.
That's awesome. Do do do. So what else? What else? Okay, you're an equipment junkie, but
Yes,
you also
sir.
told me you're simplifying your tanks. So is there what latest new toys do you have you've been playing with?
I have moved to the Coral View Hydros system. Like, well, not completely. I need an alkatronic. So I am still just using my Neptune Apex head unit and the Trident, but everything else is fully hydros. I have
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't just, so let me back up. I didn't just one day decided I'm going to rip the Apex off and just go with the hydros. I bought the hydros Control 2 and was running it on my nano tank
Mm-hmm.
for, since day one, actually, because I bought it directly from Coral View and I actually received it delivered before the release date. So that was cool.
Nice.
So I've been running that since day one. And I think the best compliment I can say is, the app is on my kid's tank,
Mm-hmm.
kid's phone, and like you don't notice any difference. Everything just works. So I have the Control 2 and 2 plug bars and the ATO on my kid's tank. And you know what? When it was time to, me in the past, Dev, like I would just wake up one day and say, "Hey, let me try these new lights." So I
Mm-hmm.
think the hydros is kind of my new toy, which lets me leave my tank alone.
That's fair.
Lets me leave my tank alone. But I'm loving the hydro so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's new. I'm sure there's features and other things to come. There's little things, that's different than the Apex. But I think it's safely in the number two position now.
Yeah. Nice.
I think, yes, I think it's. I mean, I think I would recommend it over like a GHL controller just because of ease,
Mm-hmm.
price. GHL is not easy to use, and it's not exactly a budget controller.
No,
So
I think it's very well made, but it's not cheap, and it's definitely more of a learning curve.
yes, not
It,
user friendly is what we should say.
exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's ridiculous because I have an Apex, a Hydros, and a GHL, and it feels extreme and obsessive. But that's the only way I can learn them to make do little tutorials and other things in the future. Now, question for you is: you said you have a pH probe on your calc reactor?
I don't. I don't. So I had the hole open, so I plugged it. I don't. I haven't. So I have a few people I talk to that I trust. Um, there's some people I talk to for equipment. There's some people I talk to when I need help with corals. Um, anyone in my circle haven't given me a good enough reason
Mm-hmm.
to use a pH probe and a calc reactor.
Okay.
So
I've thought about it as a way to know when to add more calc, but from what I've researched, it's actually better to use a conductivity probe to do that. So I keep thinking about it, and I might do it eventually. So that's why I was curious. Battle OCR, head note, but thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. Okay, another
but
one.
the Apex conductivity probe, that's a good one. I never got it to work for conductivity. Maybe that would have been a good use of it
Mm-hmm.
to use it in the because I never got it to be stable in the tank to actually measure salinity. So maybe conductivity in a calc reactor would have been a good use.
Well, okay, so the Neptune conductivity probe, the probe itself is good, but you is very susceptible to interference. I don't think they had enough shielding on their wire on it. So if you need it, you want to read accurately. One, no bubbles on it. Two, it has to be have the cable away from any power pumps. DC pumps doesn't matter. Keep that cable on its own. Give it like 6 inches between any other cable, and then you'll be fine. But that's oh whoops! I saw my tank in feed mode.
It was it was it was easier to do, and I got it to work
Yep.
better when you had the conductivity module, and you could sort of put that somewhere and run that cable straight down into the sump.
Mm-hmm.
But now, if all the cables coming from the apex itself, it's kind of harder to isolate those cables.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. Um, okay. Someone else was asking, how is the pH probe with the hydros? Whoever just asked that, sorry, I lost your name. Um, mine's been fine so far. Done the job.
Mine too.
Yep.
High caliber. It's been good. I actually broke mine accidentally, and
Oh
I
no.
needed to go back to an old pH probe, and the old pH probe you could tell immediately.
Yeah.
So um, I need a pH probe, but I'm probably going to go with the BRS model. The
Okay.
Hydros one is it's a single junction pH probe, but I think it's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So speaking of conductivity probes, GHL's has been solid. Like the numbers are just always good on it. And if I do one, I'll probably put that in the calc reactor because it's been so solid. And then a few minutes ago, people asked about eCoral in the chat. That their conductivity probe was actually really good too. Like that one was like spot on, and like it didn't get all weird and wacky. Like it just stayed solid. So yeah, so like the GHL one, I don't know if that shows up, but it was pretty solid, and it didn't have all the
I can, when you have it back towards you, I can see the graph and
yeah.
yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I can see the graph a little bit. That looks pretty okay.
So the JHL one's been solid. The Ecor one's been solid. The only issue I ever had with the eCoral, like the doser is still going strong. The controller I actually put on my buddy's tank, and it's still going strong. The only thing that happened is the temperature probe died on it. It was like an electric one with a different one. So that died at some point. Hi, Dad. Your kids in the chat. That's aside from that, it was solid. It's the only issue I ever had with it. So I put it on my buddy's tank right now, and it's still going strong.
Now, have you with the hydros? Have you tested like using the Bluetooth to connect? Because I've a few weeks ago, my internet went out,
Mm-hmm.
and I was pleasantly surprised. As long as your inside Wi-Fi is working,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be all right because it right in the app you can choose between Bluetooth or cloud. And I chose Bluetooth, and it just connected directly. I was able to turn stuff on and off. As long as your inside Wi-Fi network still works, it doesn't matter if your internet goes down. You just press a button in the app, like when you're selecting the different, yeah, you just choose Bluetooth.
Yeah. Wait. But why do you need Bluetooth if you still have inside Wi-Fi? Why wouldn't you just use Wi-Fi? I've never used Bluetooth. I never tried this. I'm curious. This is.
I think just like the Apex,
Mm-hmm.
just like with Fusion, they're always going to default to the cloud connection versus the internal.
Okay. That's fair.
So I think because if you ever need to connect to, you'll need like the local IP address 192.168. Not to get too nerdy, you'll need the internal IP address of
Yep.
the Apex to connect directly to it. So I was pleasantly surprised when, I don't know if you can see this, but right at the top you see a cloud button, you see Bluetooth. You just click Bluetooth, and it'll show you which hydros, are inside with Bluetooth. So for me, it says like, "Hey, my kid's controlled too," and you see the Bluetooth button light up, and yeah,
Yep. Would you look at that?
yeah,
I've never clicked on the Bluetooth
yeah,
button before.
yeah. And then you go back to cloud, yeah.
Yeah.
So my internet went down for a few hours, and I was like, "Hey, I can do Bluetooth."
Mm-hmm.
It would have been. This is the little thing they work on, when something's new. But I wish it would have said, "Hey, you can just use. We can't connect over cloud. Do you want to try Bluetooth?"
Mm-hmm.
And it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. How much stuff do you have on your? I have 5 plug bars, and I need more.
Holy smokes! I only got 2. You're way ahead of me. Okay, that's actually a semi-interesting one. Farm Frags was asking about the graphs on the different controllers.
Huh.
I know. So, view graph.
It's
Neptune wins for graphs. I like their graphs the best. Because I like how you can overlay stuff on them, which I think is super handy.
that is super handy. If you're an advanced user, I think the Apex is probably going to be for you. The one thing I like about the Hydros graphs is it even tells. So at the top here, you can see that's my optical. It tells you when the opticals was wet or dry. So I can look
nice.
back and see when my ATO came on. Hey, you can see when my reservoir was low because I have one that tells you if my reservoir was low.
Your graphs look more useful. Mine are all just like straight lines. Oh, the greens screened out. But they're basically just solid.
So your temperature, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
I think it goes back. What is it? A week? I'm not sure how far back Neptune goes, but yeah, it's in. Yeah, it's working. What do you have plugged? To me, though, Dev, the most intriguing thing about the Hydros is the fact that you don't need modules.
Yeah, I would agree.
You just, I bought a Control 4, and with it, I bought hey, you can have a skimmer. Mm-hmm. You can tell when your skimmer cup is full.
That's my favorite sensor. I love that sensor.
The skimmer cup is full. I did the ATO. You can add a leak detector, like the rope leak detector, and daisy chain a few of them together. You can have, there's so many you can do with these sensors. They have sense ports, so you just plug sensors into them. Mm-hmm. And if you want, what is it like? They have CO2, they have water solenoids. They have CO2 solenoids. Like there's so many things. Greg says 5 days.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just like that there's all these accessories that you don't need modules for.
So GHLs, you can compare it on the computer. You compare and overlay like you can Neptune-ish. Okay, so JHL has that not so much to the app, but on the computer you can. I'm just kind of curious to compare how far you can go back. So somebody was asking about how far back you can go, and Greg said about 5 days
5 days.
yeah. And then on here, how far back can I go?
The skimmer sensor,
Mm-hmm.
I have accidentally, because it's on the outside and then like the eye is in the cup.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few times where I've accidentally thrown that thing out, and I had to sort of reach in places I didn't necessarily to retrieve like a so just a word of warning, people, just be
Mm-hmm.
careful, because you take your skimmer cup and you're not thinking when you're dumping. So
Oh,
just
that's fair.
PSA for tonight.
Careful where you dump.
Yeah. No.
Careful where you dump stuff. Okay.
If you're using the skimmer sensor, don't lose the internal piece.
Just throwing this out there, my GHL, I just went back and let me go back as far as October 12th. So that's a long time. That may have been when I installed it, to be honest.
Ah,
That's 6 months, so that's pretty solid.
okay. So if you're doing some kind of experiment and you maybe want to see growth and alkalinity consumption over time,
Mm-hmm.
having it go back that far could be really, you know what? Okay. I okay. I didn't know that.
Okay, now the Neptune is letting me go back to January 14th, which is still pretty solid.
Mm-hmm.
January, February, March, April. That's 4 months. So GHL, I can go back 6 months. Apex 4 months, and then the Hydros. Let me figure out.
5 days.
Well, let me see in the browser though. I haven't tried that. Hydros control. I'm curious. What's the link again? I can't remember what it is.
Co coralviewhydros.com/app.
Okay. I'm actually impressed how far those graphs went back. That's pretty good. /app. coralviewhydros.com/app.
Yeah, it only goes back to April 10th.
Okay. So a week.
So it is
Or
not
5 days.
5 days, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, not that far.
Oh, now I have to figure out my login.
That I think you and I have ESP. That happens to me all the time.
That's the hardest part. It's
Yeah.
Did I get my password right? No, I don't think so. Okay. Oh, I did get it right. Sweet. Okay, I have to check in the browser now. I need to know this. This is a good comparison metric that I've never considered. It's funny how easily we get down all these rabbit holes, eh?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Skim the chat. It's loading. So any other new exciting projects on the prowl for you? Or the horizon, I guess?
No. Nothing is going on really with lights. I'm pretty happy with my Radeon Gen 5, so nothing's I know you went with the Pro. I'm a fan of the blue.
That's fair.
Because I just run AB plus. And I just mess with the intensity. So I have 3 on the tank. So I'm pretty happy with lighting. With flow, still go the Ecotech route. I'm still doing MP40s and Neros.
Yep.
The value that the Neros provide, man, $150. And yeah, I have an MP on I have 3 tanks. This is a Red Sea Reefer 350. This is a 10-gallon bubble tip anemone tank, and then I have a 25 Lagoon in my kids' room. I have a MP10 on the kids' tank because I intend to put a battery backup on it.
Yeah.
So you can't do battery backup with a oh, they got it. You can't do battery backup with anything else. So. But I'm like $150 for 3,000 gallons an hour. Like it doesn't. Like I at that point now, like I wouldn't even consider anything else.
It's good bang for your buck. Like it really is. It should make a battery backup for it though. You could have like an inline one, like because it's 24 volts. So if you put 2 batteries in series, you could basically run them off the batteries and then always be charging the batteries. I haven't tried it, but in theory I've thought about this for a while.
I've been watching Telegram, and I think he's been doing some battery stuff.
Yeah.
And I've seen I don't know if it was him, but someone in the comments in one of his videos linked to somewhere where they were using the ice cap battery backup to run
Mm,
some Nero, and they got some pretty decent hours out of it.
nice.
So if I'm not a DIY guy, so a lot of that stuff goes over my head. Like I want a reputable company to just sell me, and for me to expect like a certain, time frame out of it. I'm not. Yeah, no.
No, that's fair. I like building things, so I like DIY stuff. So it's fun for me. So that part's good. Uh,
New York City sirens. You hear that?
I do, I do. So
Yeah.
you know you're in New York. A few people are amazed that you still have a house phone.
It. You know what? It came with when you do the. It was actually more expensive to get rid of the phone than to just keep it. Like they offered you a plan, and you're like, okay.
I still have a phone. I don't have a phone plugged in, but I still have a phone number, and there's technically a phone line to the house. But it's like 9 cents a month. I'm like, it is more effort to get rid of it than pay the 90 cents a year for it.
It came cheap, and
Yeah.
I to get internet only
Mm-hmm.
was more expensive than just getting the internet and phone bundle.
I know,
So
right? You're like, all right, I guess I'll have it. Oh, Ricky, I'm with Dev. Building stuff makes you proud.
I have to say though, reefing has gotten me more DIY, but I'm not you. So I remember, I bought a new fridge for my
Mm-hmm.
apartment, and I was going to hook up an ice maker, and I literally was going to have a plumber come and hook up an ice maker. And when the fridge got delivered, I was about to schedule a plumber, and then I took it out. I was like, oh, this is just blue RO tubing.
Yep.
And I was able to like just push, connect, push, run it through, drill a hole because I'm used to drilling, like making my own dosing containers. So drilling a few holes and everything, push, connect, John gets fittings, voila,
Nice.
$200 saved by just so I'm better than I was. I'm just not.
No, that's fair. Honestly,
Yeah,
most DIY, most projects aren't that hard to do, right? Like, it's really not. It's like when it's more of like an intimidation factor. Or you're worried about breaking something or something else. But if you actually look, like a lot of these things are fairly simple in how they actually work. If you just like, you're like, I don't know. I'm just like, if they can figure it out, I can figure it out. And you just figure it out. But I also, when I was a small child, I'd like take apart everything and figure out how it works. So I've always been that mentality. So, but see, save yourself $200 by hooking up some RODI line, which is basically all the fridges.
I will follow you guys though. So when I saw your Voss bottle thing, like I followed, like that's my thing now. I make dosing
Yeah.
containers from Voss bottles, so I'll follow what someone else does,
Hmm.
but I won't. Like my tank is in my living room. Like it can be DIY, but it has to be like a
Look good.
certain. Yes, it can't be. My wife is gonna be like no, that no. I
Hmm.
had like a bucket ATO.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't
What
know.
is?
You look
I
at the
don't.
chat.
Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, I don't know. It's fun to build things. The Voss makes me happy because I made it up so long ago and I see it everywhere now. I'm like, yes, my DIY has penetrated everyone's minds in the market. Makes me happy. Oh wait, because inline 8 amp fuse auto part star. Yep. The fun part of the hobby is building stuff. I agree. Oh, you muted.
All right, sorry. Um, dealing with the family.
No problem.
First, the audio didn't work, so already restarted. We're good.
Who remembers you guys from the
Dev,
first stream?
you don't have any little ones running around.
Nope,
Not yet.
not yet. I have students. Does that count? But they're teenagers, so I have
Yeah,
big ones
not
running
the
around.
same.
What kind of works?
Not the same.
100-watt CO2 laser. Ooh, a laser cutter would be freaking sweet for building acrylic stuff. Ricky, you're a lucky man. That's on my 1 day list.
All right. Hey, can you just give me a minute?
Here,
1 second.
wait, wait,
Be
wait.
right back.
Here, I put him in timeout. There.
Thank
I
you,
put your son
Dev.
in timeout for you. You're welcome. I could tell what was going on here. Oh.
Oh,
DIY
thank you, Tim.
800. No problem. We got the power here. Uh, DIY 800 gallon. I would be slightly intimidated to do a massive tank in DIY. Like I've seen people build plywood tanks and other stuff, but that's a lot of water if something buggers up. So I've always been a little bit on the
Didn't we see? I don't remember who built like a 600-gallon tank and it didn't go so well.
Ooh, right?
Yeah,
That's a lot of
that
water in your house to
that
DIY.
that took rebuilding the entire house, if what I remember. That
Yeah.
was like, let's find another place to live and rebuild the house. Yeah. Um, yeah, that is. I don't even trust myself to build like a 10-gallon tank.
I would be okay with like a 10 or 20, but I wouldn't do it for like a couple 100 gallon tank. Like in theory it's glass and silicone, but I mean there needs to be a proper space. There needs to be, so much silicone. You need to make sure you got the right glass thickness. Certain things leave the professionals. Lots of little things I like the DIY, so.
Do you still have the 3D printer? Do you still mess with stuff like that?
I do still have it. Not as much just because it's not in my office, so it's a little more of a pain to do it. But I'm gonna make a little area so I can a little DIY area for project
Okay.
prototyping and building different things. So
Yeah, there's some cool stuff that I would love to try with 3D. I just don't have room.
hmm
Hopefully, I, my thing is to have a lab with like microscopes and 3D printer.
yes.
Yes.
Avelino, I'm probably saying your name wrong, but thank you very much for the super chat. Um, yeah, microscopes that you just mentioned, they're super cool too. That's one thing that I want to dig deeper into with the hobby. I find it's crazy looking at certain things under a microscope. Like just seeing the different cell structures and this drop of water and you're like, what are all these little creatures and stuff and moving in my tank? Like it is amazing how many microscopic creatures there are in a drop of water. Like it's crazy.
Do you remember when we used to have those really nerdy streams with like the business reef and Miss Reefer Fox,
Yep.
and they were looking at like dinoflagellates and like chrysophides. It was like super nerdy, but to me that was interesting because you would see different organisms. She would look under a microscope and say, hey, like when you see an abundance of this, things are not in balance and you're probably on the way to seeing dinoflagellates because you can see the different organisms eating each other. And when something starts to outcompete something else, then you're an issue. So it was super nerdy. I'm pretty sure people fell asleep watching that, but it was cool to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been learning. I find it super fascinating, but I don't really know enough to like reshare and teach it yet. I'm still just like, oh, that's cool. What is it? I don't know. Right. So I'm still at the early stages, but eventually I think it'd be a cool rabbit hole to like bring people down once I learn a little more about it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And no, I was gonna say like learning the science of things. It may not be for everybody because I think if we sort of if like learning this, the hobby is big and it is growing, and I also think during the pandemic it's grown a lot.
Yeah.
But if we kind of people have to learn this super nerdy stuff in order to be, I don't think a lot of people would join.
Yeah. Well, you need to be like educational and interesting, but you can't go like too extreme or you'll lose people.
Too nerdy.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to find the happy balance, which I strive for. The educational / entertaining balance without going too deep. Sometimes I slip too deep because it's easy for me to do.
We go down rabbit holes pretty easy.
It's true. But like the whole, like our tanks, you can think of it as a fish tank. You can think of it as, your coral collection or an ecosystem, or, is it your filtration, your sump is your life support system, right? Like it's as basic or extreme as you want to take it. You can have same thing with like dosing everything, right? You can be very basic. Oh, it's this, my elk's low, I add more elk. Or you can be like, oh, this type of elk does this one does this. And you're like, there's just so many levels of this hobby, which I think is fascinating, right? Because it keeps you interested long-term and entertained.
If there's one thing I have learned is that there's no, like you find someone that do something, like you and I can try to replicate things exactly. We will probably have two different outcomes.
Hmm.
Um, I think a couple years ago, I visited Greg. I went to Reefapalooza, California, and I visited, like met a lot of people in Greg's club. And they were reefers that had 20 years, 10, 20 years experience. And they were so like, the word I'm going to use is nonchalant, but it wasn't nonchalant. It was so like relaxed about things like, hey, my skimmer isn't working. I'll get to it. I'm like, what? Your skimmer isn't working? Like, I would freak out and be like, I need to get a new skimmer now. And it's like, oh, the light over here is not working, but it's fine. Like, I just bumped the other lights out. They were so like calm, like the sky wasn't falling if something happened. Like, I remember like if I saw a hammer die, I've
Hmm.
always been a fan of Euphila. If a hammer died, I would start adjusting the levels of light, adjusting flow. And he's like, no, why would you do that? Like, a hammer's not doing well. Just move it. Like, why would you piss off the rest of the tank just to satisfy? You have 50 other coral. Why piss off, the
Hmm.
rest of them? So that was kind of a, like a good experience, just learning how like they, Woody is like that. Like I
Hmm.
talk to Woody all the time, a good friend of mine. He's the same. He's like, oh, the tank is fine. And, like I saw pictures of his tank and it's not a big tank, but then all of a sudden I looked at it. The thing was like fully grown out with huge colonies. I'm like, when did it get like that? He's like, oh yeah, man. Like I just like it just happens. The skimmer isn't working. He's like, I'll get to it. He's just so nonchalant, but
That's funny.
maybe it just stops him from over adjusting when something goes wrong. The tank is on a good trajectory. So if one thing isn't working, he doesn't over adjust or overcompensates for it.
And that is a key lesson because knee-jerk reactions are usually trouble, right? You're like, oh, this one parameter's way off. I must fix it instantly. But really, maybe you just tested wrong, right? Or, you did a little extra drops. Like, if something's out of whack, especially if it's like a test, wait 24 hours, test again and see if it's the same result or see if maybe it's not as bad as you thought. So there is lots of little things that considered like that where you kind of go slow and don't do some panic reaction because you try and fix one thing and you're going to cause another swing which will piss off more things, and it's kind of like that slippery slope.
Or it took you so long to get there that the tank is just used to it. So it took you 4 weeks to get there. You're not going to fix it overnight. It might take
Yeah,
you 4 weeks to get back to,
no, it's true.
normal.
Very, very true. John Reefer Vermont, what is your recommendation for salinity meters for mixing station? I like the Hano one, to be honest. It
That's
floats,
what I
it's quick
use.
and easy, it works pretty well, so I'm pretty happy with it. Damon, $5 super chat, thank you, sir, much appreciated. um
I use the henna. I saw some guy was having like a forum fire sale, and I bought the Red Sea refractometer, and
mhm,
then I realized I can't see it. I don't know if I'm just getting old and I have bad eyesight, but
mhm.
I could barely see the line. So I just calibrate the henna more often than it needs to be, but it's always spot on,
I do mine
and that's
once every month and a bit, probably. How often do yours?
once a month.
Okay.
But I thought that was too much. But
Hmm.
every time I do it, I don't even. I just put it in the packet. I soak the packet in the tank, dip it, and it always. I still calibrate, but it's always spot on. So
Yeah, you'll put it anyways. You might as well. Okay,
yeah,
question for you. Are you dosing? You're dosing.
I'm dosing
Okay.
Triton.
So I've heard people report that the Hana one isn't as accurate if you're like dosing stuff because it messes with your salt levels or something. I've personally never had an issue, but I use calc and a calcium reactor, so I don't think that affects it. But some people have told me it's not as accurate if you're dosing.
Well,
Have you
dosing
noticed this?
affects your salt level
It does.
because you are dosing salt. So dosing by itself, I would say, affects your salt level because
Hmm.
if you're doing like BRS2 part, it's sodium chloride, it's
Hmm.
salt.
Yep.
So the short answer is yes, I would expect it to because dosing affects your salt.
Yeah, which
I don't
makes,
know if
but that's
it's
your whole tanks. But the meter doesn't read any differently than any other
no,
meter.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I
I.
I use it. I use it. I will use it to measure the tank.
Hmm.
So I mix up my salt. I will use it to measure the tank. I will use it to measure my mixing container. Then I will calibrate it, and then I'll go test again. And like I said, it's almost always spot on.
Yep. Ooh, ooh, ooh. This is kind of fun. It took me ages to get one because they're never in stock, but I got a big glass hydrometer, the bobber one, which I don't use it very often, but I use it once in a while as like to check things because this baby's always in gotta be careful not to break it because this big neck is delicate. But if you never need to calibrate, you get this baby, you need to drop it in. But there needs to be no flow. But this little bobber, wherever the water line is, it gives you your exact reading. I think it's
Where
kind of
did
fun.
you get that?
BRS.
Really?
Yeah, they're like not in stock half the time, so I literally watched for like 4 months before I finally got one. But I think it's Tropic Marin. Yeah, Tropic Marin. But
How much is it?
like $35 or something like that. But it's cool to, if you ever question or you ever need to double check, because it never needs to be calibrated. It's always dead on, right? So I've used it like 3 or 4 times. I haven't used it a ton, but every once in a while I pull it out just to double check the tank if I don't trust my probes or you want to, if it needs to be calibrated. So yeah, I think they're kind of cool.
That is cool.
The only big note or consideration is you need to have no flow when you do it.
So just turn off the flow.
Yeah, just turn off the flow, because otherwise it moves around and bobs and you gotta wait for it to settle. But yes, super cool tool to just like double check or verify stuff.
All right, I'm gonna get one.
Yep, so they're good. Devin in the OG gear, you betcha. I don't know. There's little things that I've like wanted for ages, and I'm like, that'd be good to have. You don't use it very often. And I bought a NIST thermometer too, which was overly priced. But again, I've used it like 4 times. But if you set up something new, it's good to like double check it, and then you can actually legitly calibrate stuff properly. At the end of the day, does my tank care if it's 77 or 78? Probably not. But it's just nice to be able to dial in things, and there's so many things like in our hobby, which kind of makes me laugh, because I'm like, okay, spent this money to have this ultra precise scientific-y instrument, but if it's 2 points higher, 2 points lower, the tank's probably fine as long as it's stable. So don't stress the numbers, just keep things stable rather than chasing and letting stuff swing back and forth all the time.
I think there's a question by Avelino Fernandez Jr. Yep. Anyone know if you can run 2 pH probes off the apex instead of the ORP probe?
Yes, you can. And I've done that for a long time because I had one in the tank, one in the calcium reactor. So you 100% can.
There's a setting you have to change somewhere in the apex. I don't remember where. You have to change the setting.
Yeah, you go to
change it from ORP to pH. Okay.
Yep, you go to like the settings and input, and then I think when you click on that probe or that input, then you can change it in there. So. Or you can add a module. James, thank you.
Someone said you can add a module, but if you have the 2016 full Apex that comes with the ORP probe, yes, you can. You just buy a second pH probe and change a setting. Yep. I'm not familiar. I don't remember what setting, but that's how I ran my calcium reactor. I just I took the ORP probe off and just used it.
Yep.
But if you have like the Apex EL, I think you need to purchase a module because it doesn't come with an ORP port.
Yep. And most people don't need ORP. It's nice to have. It's a good indicator. Like something dies or something's off in your tank. But unless you're running Ozone, you don't really need it. So you could definitely reuse that port.
I used, for that purpose, when something dies, I use my Seneye. Like my Seneye is one of those devices that I see people keep comparing it to the Apex, which is not. So I use the par meter, which is fine. And every time I cycle a tank, like I know it's not super accurate, but it will tell me when the ammonia is high or trending high. And it also tells you when it's out of water. So it's one of those things where when I'm leaving on vacation, I put a computer close to it, plug it in, and it'll tell me when my ATO container is too low, my sump is too low, or when something has died.
Yeah.
Because then your ammonia you'll see 0 and then you'll see a spike and you can set up alerts. So I use my Seneye for it. I don't use it only a few times a year, but it does come in handy for specific things. Like it'll alert and tell you when it's out of water. So you can put it when your pump, when you're not going to be home and right where your pump is about to start sucking in air, it'll tell you out of water. So
yeah, well, that's fair. I've always liked the idea of the Seneye, and I think it's like your best bang for your buck to get a par meter, but I can never get over the paying for the monthly slides, so I've never actually bought one.
But no, I buy them, but it's only for specific instances, like producer Reef. I think he's out in Vegas now, but he's here from New York, from Long Island. And when he was setting up his tank, like I he used my Seneye, and he bought slides, but he was able to see when the ammonia was spiking. I think he had some issues getting his tank to cycle, and the Seneye actually told him that his ammonia was still high. So, it preventing you having to go in and test every day with the API test kit. But yeah, in terms of buying the pH probes every month, that's a no. That's a non-starter. Yeah, no.
But if you consider it's a par meter that has the added bonus benefits of all the other stuff, then I think it makes a lot more sense.
That's exactly how I consider it. It's a par meter and water level versus, once I did, when I used to run a refugium, I don't run a refugium anymore. But at the time, for me, the gold standard of like refugium lights was the Kessel. And I remember I decided at the time to do an experiment, and I bought all these like grow lights off Amazon and like tested this. And it turns out, guess what? When you overlaid them, you couldn't tell the difference between, like, that UFO grow light, the purple.
Oh yeah, that's a classic.
When you overlay that with like a bunch of other ones I bought off of Amazon, the spectrum, like when I show people the graph, I was like, tell me which is which. Like you couldn't see, like you couldn't differentiate the lines. So all these lights, that just told me that I didn't necessarily have to go with the Kessel per se, but
I almost bought the Kessel so many times, but I never did. The 360.
You can't dim, which was the big thing. It wasn't dimmable, which was the big thing.
That's what stopped me. Exactly.
Yeah. The Prime, I think I still have my Prime. I still have those light shapers. So the Prime, you could, and you didn't even need a port on your Apex to run it either, because you could schedule it. So that's another good thing. Like it, you just plug it in a regular plug and tell it when to ramp up, when to ramp down.
Yep. The Prime's still probably my favorite. I'm gonna say the other, because it just grows very well and it's tiny, which I like. My other light that I've used for refugiums that also grew it like crazy, which I don't think exists or sells anymore, but it was Evergrow Nova S2. That's what it was called. And it had 2 pucks. It was like stupid bright. It was like this big, black box style looking thing that was about that big, and it was white. And it was overly loud, so of course took it apart and put in quieter fans. But yeah, that was probably the best one I had at the time. And then I would say the Nero is fairly not the Nero, whatever it's called. Prime Fuge is fairly comparable, but it's way tinier. But it probably grows just as well, or pretty darn close. The Kessel ones, I could never get over the non-dimmable thing. Oh, speaking of Kessel, how do they still have freaking Wi-Fi dongles? I don't know why, but it irks me.
Man, don't
Even their
get me.
brand new light. Do you still have the janky dongles? Like, build that in. Make your light that much thicker and freaking build it in. Drives me nuts.
Man, I don't. And all right, let me take 30 seconds to review first. So there is this 90-watt light category, right? Which is the Radion, which is the Hydra 32, which is, I forgot, there's a couple of lights in this 90-watt category. The Kessel, so the one that Jake Adams, the one that does deeper penetration, that's for specific application. So while it's not cheap, I can understand that is for when you get outside the norms, like normal, like things, you're going to pay extra for it. But it is the most expensive light in that. I love Kessel, and this is why this hurts so much. It is the most expensive light in that 90-watt category, right? Then you need to get a controller with it. And I don't know what keeps pissing me off is not that I'm trolling, but I keep commenting. I keep commenting everywhere, like Reef Builders. I'm like, yeah, it's nice, but it doesn't have an. And the answer I keep getting is, well, Kessel always has that knob. I'm like, who the heck is going to go turn the knob? Like, what we are always telling people is set your light and leave it. Are you every day going to get up in the morning and turn your light on? Like,
walk over and turn your knobs from bluer to whiter.
For this light. Like, why do I have to go get a $20 timer? Like every other, wait, Dev, it is the most expensive 90-watt light. It's more
Yeah.
expensive than a Radeon Gen 5
Well,
XR15.
mhm.
And then you still have to get, you don't have access to the channels. You still have to go get a $90 controller to get
Yep.
access to the channel.
I know. It just I want to like Castle more, but the whole external controller and the janky dongle just bugs me. I don't know why. But the thing I don't understand is they make like horticulture lights, they make photography lights that have built-in controllers. Like, why are they not in the aquarium lights? They already have the technology. I'm just ranting.
Yeah.
But
John said the AP9X is fine.
Mhm.
It's the A360X.
It's the
And
little
then
ones.
after you buy the Wi-Fi dongle, you have to daisy chain
Yeah, you still
a
have to
bunch
do a
of things
wire.
together.
But like they have photography lights that can talk to each other. Why is that technology? They already have it. Just put it in the aquarium lights. Like the lights would be so much better without the stupid dongle you need on it. I don't know. Sorry,
The
I'm ranting.
last time I was in the last time I was in B&H, I think I went to get something for you.
You're like, oh, the
And
console
Dev,
section.
no,
microphones.
no, it's funny. I walked through the lighting section because the way B&H is, and I was amazed. I was walking past Kessel lighting, like Kessel. When I was in IT, like Kessel, yeah. I don't understand how for 90 watts, I shouldn't have to buy a light that was released in 2020 or 2019. Why do I get a light that all I have is the knob and that's it? You don't get anything, and I have to go pay $100, which brings it to $540 to get basic features that you get from Ecotech, everyone else, and other cheaper light. Like I know, like
Okay.
why do I have to go get a $10 timer to turn a $450 light on and off?
I know, right? Okay, wait. Okay? Farm Frags. I think it's called Felix. Yeah, so Felix is their brand. I'm looking at their website right now. Rentals, concerts, corporate events. Like they make these like super fancy lights for video and photography. Like they have the technology. Just put it in the light. I don't know.
Yeah, buy this janky dongle that sticks on top.
It-
You buy the light it's more expensive than a Radeon, than a Hydra 32. It's more expensive, and then you don't have any controls. You have to go pay an extra $100.
It's not even
And
like
then every time I say this, somebody's like, "Well, you can daisy chain lights together." Well, I could daisy chain 100 Radeons or Hydras together without
wires or
any kind of
dongles.
janky anything, dude.
I think to me it just looks janky having this little dongle on top of your light. Like it looks sleek, and you're like, oh, let me put this big lump on top of it. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Somebody said the other day, "Well, Apex is going to control it now, but you still need the dongle."
And the wires. But like, just build it in. Like honestly, that little board cost them like $8. Like make it that much thicker and just build it in. Like I don't know. Okay, my rant's done. But it
Yes,
just
me too.
when I saw
I'm
the
glad
new
I-
light a few months ago that came out and it still needed the dongle, I'm like, are you kidding me?
Did you hear what you said? The jungle. I think I found
The
it. The
jungle.
janky dongle.
The janky dongle, the jongle.
Yes, new word.
Yeah.
Jungle. Let me put it in the chat now. So we've coined it. We've copyrighted it. We own it.
jungle.
The janky.
Janky
called the
jungle.
jungle.
But I don't know.
Yes.
I want to like Kessel more, but the fact that the new light still needs a jungle, I'm like, why?
I
Now-
am from Jamaica, and Kessel shimmer reminds me of that.
Yeah.
You know, like in
They-
the Caribbean,
do
like
nice
on
shimmer.
Saturdays or Sundays, the
Mhm.
shimmer reminds me of like going to the beach midday in the Caribbean. It does. So there's always, it's still the first premium light I bought. So there's like a nostalgia with it, right? But
Yeah. John, still not clear how you guys feel about it. I don't know. It's bugged me for a while. This is the first time I've actually ranted about it. Now, that being said, their new light that can go really high up and shoot down, I think is cool. And I still think it'd be amazing to have a tank, you know, where you give your 8-9 foot ceilings, and if you actually mounted your lights in pot lights in the roof and had nothing about the tank, I think that'd be really cool. And I think that their new light is a step closer to that. And I wouldn't care about the dongles in the roof. I couldn't see it, but I think that would be really cool. So I think that is something I'd love to see happen one day. But yeah, the shimmer that I could not give up. Yeah, like the shimmer does look nice. The water lines do look pretty cool. Like it is definitely a nice aspect of it. But
I have seen
yes.
like Joe Caparetta
Mm-hmm.
on, I don't know if you're friends with him. He seems to be building like an awesome fish room. Like I've just seen, he's great. Like whatever he does in that fish room looks great. And I've
Mm-hmm.
just seen where he has like these mangroves, and then he has like the little, I think he has little fish swimming or living amongst the roots of the mangroves. Like imagine if you could do that,
Mm-hmm.
a lagoon style,
Oh
but
yeah.
then the lights like are so high up. I wouldn't even want to grow coral, just grow mangroves. Maybe that'll be your sump. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but that, yes, you're
Yeah.
right. There are applications for it.
Yeah.
Because
Which
Jake
would be
was getting
cool.
some serious par, like
Mm-hmm.
4 feet down, or
Yep.
no, someone. I watched a video the other day where someone, Mr. Saltwater Tank, measured
Mm-hmm.
like 4 feet, and with the narrow reflector. I like that one.
Mm-hmm.
I still hate the janky dongle, but
Yeah, I agree.
it's just
But it's a
for
cool.
that application,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
But it's a cool concept, and I think I would love to see that. I would love to see aquarium lights that you could put in like a pot light in your roof that had enough. The beam was narrow enough that you could actually, a 2 or 3 foot tank, you could light it up with nothing above it and all in pot lights. I think that'd be amazing. I'd love to see that,
Yeah.
and I think we're
I
getting
think
closer.
Orphic has a light like that, but
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, or yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Greg, if you ever have Greg on, you should ask him about Orphic. I don't think he's a fan.
Greg's coming on soon, actually. Who knows what we'll get into?
Yeah.
You're coming
So,
soon, Greg. Just so you know,
yes.
this month.
Just give him some time to rant about that.
Okay,
Just,
sounds good. But yeah, so I don't know. I think that would be really cool. I had some other good point I was going to bring up, but I completely lost it during our rant. Completely forgot what I was going to say. But
That's okay.
the lagoon. Last year I was in Louisiana, and one of the fish stores I went to, completely mind blank on the name. I got to scroll through my phone and figure out what the store was. But they had this massive lagoon tank in there again with there's a skylight and stuff, and they had a big mangrove, like a tree, like 8-foot tree in there, like super big mangrove tree, and the whole tank had coral and fish, and it was like this massive lagoon. You could walk all around it. It was like waist high, super cool tank. In Louisiana, can I figure out what it was called? I don't know. I might have a photo on my phone. Let me go to the map view.
That is my, hey, I have I had this dream that whenever I'm retired and I can do whatever I want to do,
Yeah.
I want a because I want a low tank,
Mm-hmm.
but everyone in my family, we're pretty tall. So, well, you're tall too. So low for us might not be low for everyone else. But I want something where, and I'll put a bunch of clams in it and mangroves where you can view everything. That tank, I would probably have a ton of like corals. Oh, yeah.
Here, let me email
That
this
is
to myself
kind of,
so I can bring it up.
that is my like dreams, to just have a lagoon with mangroves and clams, and the tank is supposed to be super white with a lot of oh, thank you, John Reef from Vermont. Super white with like, what do you call it again, like gorgonians, and you could
Gargonians?
feed the heck out of it with, like, I think it just should be a white daylight tank, like no blue at all,
Mm-hmm.
and we're just gonna have mangroves and yeah.
Can't see the jungle if you got a canopy. There you go. You are safe with a canopy.
Yep.
Okay.
I think you know what? We coined that. I'm going to write an article on my personal blog tonight with Jongle. And so if anybody searches Jongle, like, we should come up. Make sure you put that in the description somewhere, Dev.
Jongle?
So,
I'll put it in the tags.
Jongle. Yes. So if anybody searches Jongle, we...
Okay. This is, sorry, you can't see it unless you're watching the YouTube stream, but it gives you an idea. Like this, can I make this smaller so it fits? Sorry, it's a vertical photo, but it is literally the mangrove was touching the roof of the building and the skylights, and they had like a little floating acrylic canopy with all the other lights in it. But it was like just such a cool tank. It was super unique, and yeah, it was really cool. So I take a photo of the store to figure out the name. It was in High Park, New Orleans.
I need a better, you know what? I need a better, ooh, that's cool.
Yeah, super cool.
You know what? The next time I'm on, Dev, I need like a studio lighting like you.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I have lots of lights. I invest a lot into the quality of YouTube. I appreciate good quality. Hey, you're looking pretty good now. You opened the window or something. You got a lot more light now. Or you have put a light on.
I moved. Yeah. Man,
Good lighting makes a big difference, seriously. Even if you have like a crappy camera, good lighting makes a huge difference.
all right, I'm gonna work on that.
Same with a cell phone. If you have good lighting, you can get amazing video from a cell phone. If it's dark, crappy lighting, it's all pixelated, it's not as good. So lighting is huge.
All right, I'm gonna work on that.
Yep. Good.
You
Good.
remember those standing desk lamps you have? I actually have one of that. I just don't have two. So maybe I need another one to kind of balance it.
That's what I used to do before I bought these. I had one on each side of me, and they're just those big LED strip lamps you can adjust the color temperature. They're cheap. They worked.
All right, I'm gonna get another one, and it's gonna be two.
Perfect.
All right.
It'll be good. That looks like WWC. No, WWC is actually really cool. Like their Lagoon tank is amazing. When I saw that in person for the first time, I was like, dang. But yeah, this is like baby version of that. But yeah, still super, super cool.
Louisiana
was a cool place. I was supposed to go back there, and then good old COVID happened, and then never happened. It's quite sad.
Love the South. Good food, right?
Oh, so good. They love their crawdads down there too, with the crayfish.
I'm in Memphis a lot with the barbecue.
Yep. Ooh. But yeah, it was fun. I can't wait to go back again one day. I miss trips and reef shows, the good old days.
Are you not coming to check out any of the like Reefapaloozas or?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. Currently, at the current state, like if I leave and come back and have to quarantine for 2 weeks, and it's a big hassle, and I don't know. I want to.
You work from home, so you can just quarantine at home.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. But yeah. I know. Eventually.
No snow. I mean, it is not winter anymore, so you can't snowboard. So I mean, quarantining at home for 2 weeks is. I think you're overthinking this.
It's true. It's true. Maybe I will. We'll see. I don't know. I miss traveling,
and flights are cheap. Flights are cheap.
This is true. I still have credit because I canceled 2 flights last year, so.
There is a very important question from Avelino Fernandez again. He's had some good questions today.
Seymour?
Let me read it out and you answer.
Okay, you have to take the stream because I got to run the washroom quickly. I'll be back in 1 second.
All right, no problem.
This is like 2 hours. We're going long. I'll be back. It's all you, buddy.
The kids have taken over the stream. All right. Avelino Fernandez Jr. Sorry. When you switch from 2-part to a calcium reactor, do you just stop 2-part or do you slow it down as you start up the calcium reactor? Definitely slow it down as you start up the calcium reactor, because if it's your first time with a calcium reactor, I think, it could be, some things. So I think the best way is a transition. They say slow. Slower is always better, but Greg can chime in, but I think slow it down. Actually, I think Greg is in the middle of setting up his calcium reactor when he was dosing 2-part, so he can probably chime in and give you important, more information on that. Come to Orlando. Yeah, I hope Dev goes to Orlando. I can't make it to Orlando, Greg. I got a final no on that. When this pandemic is over, we should do a Reef Dudes family reunion out in Jamaica. Side tour by ReefingWithO. Dude. Yes. Sounds like fun. In Jamaica? I'm down for that. Farm Frag, who wants to pick me up in Orlando? I'm in New York. Avelino Fernandez, I'm gonna have to find some YouTube videos. I think BRS has a few good videos on calcium reactors. And also, if you're on Instagram, Greg Carroll does some cool stuff on calcium reactors. But Dev, you're way more experienced in calcium reactors than I am. So,
what's the question? I'm back.
He basically has 2-part, and he wants to use a calcium reactor.
Yep.
Like, he wants, what's the best way to like slowly wean the tank off, the 2-part. Is that the best way to do it? Is the first question.
Yeah, you could probably like estimate how much 2-part you dosing a day, roughly, or was
He
it?
didn't say.
Okay, so I would probably put the calcium reactor online, and as you lower the pH in the calcium reactor, you're going to increase the concentration of elk. So you could just start your pH inside really high and just lower it a little bit every few days, and then just like ease up on your dosing. Or you could cold turkey do it, but it kind of depends. Like if you stop dosing for a day and your tank is going to drop like 2 points, that's going to be trouble. That's way too much. But if it's like a small drop, you could probably just cold turkey cut it over. Generally, it takes like about a week or so to dial in a calcium reactor because you make an adjustment. You wait a day or so, see how it affects your thing. Yeah, so 330 mils is a lot of 2-part. So you could most definitely take advantage of a calcium reactor because you're probably spending a fortune in 2-part. So yeah, I would probably just put it online and start dosing and just cut back your, maybe take off 20% off your dosing. And then just every few days, take a little more off and just lower the pH or the flow rate through your calcium reactor. So to adjust your calcium reactor, because I explain this is like weekly, 2 ways you can do it. You can lower the pH in the calcium reactor, which increases how much media melts. So it essentially increases the concentration of alkalinity. So the lower the pH, the higher the alkalinity. So that's one way to adjust it. The other way is to adjust how much flow is going through it. So I'm a big fan of using a continuous duty pump like a Versa or a Camor. So you can dial in how much flow is going through the reactor. So that's basically how much elk you're dosing. So pH is how the level of elk, the concentration of elk, and then the fluent flow is how much of that elk you're dosing. That's the easiest way to think of it. So yeah, I would just start doing it, put the pH in the reactor higher, and just slowly lower it as you decrease the pH in the reactor as you decrease your dosing, and that's going to increase the elk concentration.
I'm going to just make sure you get a good regulator. And just because of what happened to me when I first, do you remember that story?
So speaking of reactors and Versas that have exploded, tell us more.
Well, not the Versa, but you remember what happened with my regulator when I
Vertex.
was using.
Yes,
I was using I forgot the name of the company. And I remember calling you, and I spoke to Greg, and I spoke to Phil, Reef Keeper, and you all told me like, no, man, something's wrong. That gauge shouldn't be that number. And I called the company, and they said that gauge doesn't measure anything. Like, we haven't used that for years. And what happened?
Boom.
Something happened, and it reduced, and all the CO2 under the bottle just released at one time, and my calcium reactor exploded.
Yep. Yeah.
And
basically you overpressurized it.
Yes, $500 reactor, brand new. Boom, up in smoke.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't cool.
Did you ever get it fixed, or were you SOL for that?
I did not get it fixed. Actually, you know who has it now? Producer Reef, you saw in here. He's very good with acrylic work, so he ended up fixing it, but I didn't trust it enough to use it.
Yeah.
The great thing about the Vertex, though, is the seams held. It's the actual acrylic right in the middle that. So if you want to know if PVC welding is strong, that's an example of it being strong, because you would think like it's one of the edges, the weak point that would blow out. No, it literally cracked in the middle.
Sorry, this is a solid point. Decantus Reef. The company told you the second gauge didn't matter.
Yes, that's who was it?
Yeah, who was it? Why would you put a gauge on if it doesn't do anything? Makes no sense.
That's what they told me. They told me that second gauge. What gauge was it? It was what's the pressure in the bottle, or I forgot what it was. But when I remember talking to you about it, you're like, yeah, I would take it off. Doesn't seem right.
Yeah, because I'm like, yeah, I don't like it. Yep.
Yeah, they told me. Hey, Woody. Yeah, they told me that gauge didn't matter, and I don't know what I did, but all of a sudden I hear, boom.
Oof, that hurts. That's expensive too.
$100, man.
Yep. Marcus Reef, don't go too low on your pH or you'll turn to mush 100%. I run mine at around 6.5 to 6.6 is kind of the range for it. And another thing I like to do too is tune in your bubble count so that your pH in the reactor is stable. So ideally, the solenoid is not going on, off, on, off, on, off constantly, because that way you reduce the wear and tear on your solenoid. And on the flip side, if it ever failed, then at least your bubble count keeps things stable and it's not going to tank down and turn all to mush. So every media is a little bit different, but I found that kind of works for most. And I think I have like multiple brands of media in mine right now, and that's been the happy range for it.
What regulator do you use now?
I have the ultra fancy carbon doser that I bought used off Derek because they're overly priced and I couldn't bring myself to spend $400 on it. And so I bought that used off them. And then I have a pinpoint CO2 one that I was using prior to that I'm going to be using on the frag tank whenever I put that one online. Yep. How long does the media last? It lasts a long time. Like, my reactor's been up for almost a year now, and it's still like 80% full. Like, hands down, one of the biggest benefits of a calcium reactor is you touch it like once a year. Like, literally, it just works. And you're not refilling your dosing bottles every month, and worrying if something runs out. You like literally leave it for like a year, and eventually you're like, oh, let's top off a little bit of media like a year later. Same with the CO2 tank. I have a 10-pound CO2 tank. It's been like a yearish now, and it's still going strong. Like, I keep thinking one of these days it's gonna run out, but still keeps on going.
And your parameters are, once you have a calcium reactor dialed in, you probably only need to test alkalinity, because the other two parameters, once you put some mag chips, you probably have to dose magnesium periodically. But once you have it dialed in, your calcium reactor, your calcium and alkalinity are going to be balanced. So you only really need to test one.
Yeah, so like my last couple elk test, 8.79, 8.68, 8.79, 8.69. Like, it's like 0.1 of a fluctuation over 12 hours. Like, it's super stable, which is great.
And you're using an alkatronic, right?
Yep.
See, I was thinking, I think that's one of the things I was going to miss going from the Apex to the Hydros is the, like the Trident.
Yeah.
But I started doing just some, to see what I would lose. And from my calculations, I don't think like over like a 2.5 year period, I think the Alkatronic and the Trident come out to the exact same cost.
Yeah, you actually work that out.
Yeah, when the Trident has a lower initial cost, but
higher monthly.
The Alkatronic ongoing, like even if you consider you have to replace the pH probe, let's say once a year, and you have to replace the cylinder. Yeah, but I'm just throwing out. I haven't emailed the company to even get like an answer. This is just me, because the reagent is so cheap and it's about to get cheaper. I think it just works. It's a higher. Of course, there's pros and cons to each.
Yep.
The Alkatronic, I think it has a dosing pump in it, right?
Yep, it can dose out for you.
And I think I also read somewhere that it has like a Bluetooth switch or something in it where it can. I think a version of it comes with it can turn off like an outlet.
Yes, it can. It comes with a Wi-Fi outlet that it can control, so you could use it on a calcium reactor to control it. I have the plug. I've never used it. Maybe it's Bluetooth. I don't know. I've never used it. Never used the plug. I haven't used it to control it. I just use it to monitor, and then I just tweak it myself ever so slightly every once in a while.
Yeah, so they are exactly the same. You just have a higher initial cost. And that's also assuming that you get the 6-month reagents for the Trident, because during the pandemic, I wasn't able to get 6-month reagents for like half the time I had the Trident. So, it wasn't, but yeah, I think they're exactly the same. I worked it out, and it wasn't like I was, I wasn't losing anything. It's just.
For sure. Chili Willis Reef, would it be better to use calcium reactor over any 2-part solution? It depends on your tank size. On a small tank, 2-part is just easier and cheaper. Calcium reactors are expensive up front, but they're cheaper long term. And they're just kind of cool and they're super stable. But the simplicity of 2-part on a smaller tank is just easier. The bigger a system is, I think, the more it starts to make sense to use a calcium reactor. So it
I
depends.
on my kids nano, I just mix up some calc and just use a dosing pump to just dose it. Keeps the
Mm-hmm.
pH high, and it
Yeah.
just. But yeah, Alpha Reef is really cool for like small tanks where you just dose and it has calcium, magnesium, and a lot of traces.
Yeah.
Or if you have a softy nano, sometimes water changes takes care of most of what you need.
Yeah. Like on my old 20-gallon nano, which was a mixed reef tank, I did a 5-gallon bucket a week water change, so like 25%. The tank thrived. I had a doser, but it dosed like 2 or 3 mils a day, and it was like super duper easy. So it's a good way to go. Now Alpha Reef. I'm like, yeah, should be on 2 hours. My tank's going back into normal mode. My live stream mode's ended.
Oh,
Messes with my green screen from the blue lights. But yeah, kick it back on. This is a marathon today. Back to live stream mode. There you go. What was I ranting on? Custom reactors.
yeah, some Rexers.
Yeah, so big tank makes a lot of sense. Oh, Alpha Reef. I've never tried this, but I think an Alcatronic with Alpha Reef would be sweet because it has one dosing head. If you have a smaller tank and you can only use Alpha Reef as all-in-one dosing, either that or Polyp Lab 1 is another. They're basically the same product, or not the same, but similar idea where it's one thing. But you can have your Alcatronic test and dose everything all in one. I think that'd be sweet on a smaller tank. I've always wanted to try it, but my tanks are all big now because, yeah. So, but I thought it'd be a really cool way to try and go with it.
I actually have another option. I think you do it with the carbocalcium and then you
Yeah.
dose the magnesium and traces separately.
Yeah.
So you go with the carbocalcium, which can scale up to a big tank.
Yep.
Actually, and then that takes care of your calcium alkalinity. And then you just test and hand dose magnesium. And then maybe, offer Tropic Marine has so many different traces. You can probably just, like you showed your little rack earlier in the stream. So maybe you can do the same thing.
It's still on my desk. No, this is on top of the other trace elements that I'm dosing. I'm trying to every couple months I've been ICPing. I'm trying to dial them into these pristine, perfect, every element in there and seeing if it makes the tank just be amazing. So we'll see. It's getting closer. Yep.
So you can sorry, was getting a call. So yeah, you can actually yeah, I think I'm actually I'm loving Triton right now.
Mm-hmm.
A good thing is when you're in New York, you can go get Triton from Manhattan Aquariums, which is very convenient, but I'm going to be tempted to do carbocalcium.
Yeah.
And also carbocalcium, when you buy it in powder form, it's cheap.
Let me know how that goes. I haven't tried it, but it's always interested me, so I'm curious to know.
Mm-hmm. So just like you, I am not because even though the Trident and I had a dose, I wasn't auto dosing.
Mm-hmm.
So even initially, I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to use my Versa to just have it test and then I manually adjust my, but I'm going to try it. I think eventually I'll go to, hey, it auto doses for you. And because I think the few times you've had the guy, I don't remember his name, from Tropic Marine and on, he has said that it doesn't scale well to Alpha Reef doesn't scale well to big tanks. I think he said that.
He did, but there was also one of the BRS guys' tank. I know they're using it double of what they were rated for, and they said it was still working awesome.
I've seen it on a 75-gallon tank locally here.
Yeah.
Which is, so...
I don't know if Lou or someone told me that, but they were using it on a much bigger tank at a much higher ratio, and it was still going very well, so... But it's a cool idea because it's simple, right? If you want to keep your tank simple, you have one thing to dose. Super duper easy.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of 8 bazillion things to dose like I do. But then again, my frag tank, I don't really dose anything extra. So it's interesting to see, especially if you look at the same corals over time, to see, pristine trace elements parameters versus just general throw it in there. I'm interested to compare it long term. I think it'll be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Triton. It's convenient. It's supposed to have all traces.
Is Triton? Do you find Triton expensive for all their stuff you dose? I debated. I haven't went down that rabbit hole, but
okay. Let me I feel like I've done the numbers on this already,
okay.
And I don't remember. So if you're buying Triton, in the regular 1 liter container. It's very expensive, but I also buy the bulk where you mix it up.
Yeah.
I will tell you a joke. I'll tell you a joke about Triton. I don't know if you watched that Jake Adams video where he was dropping like food coloring in his 2-part to like tell the difference.
Yeah.
Oh man, I did that and I went crazy with it. We were like I had to like end up throwing them out because I thought I used 10, and then my son was like, "No, Dad, like I think you put like 20 drops." And then he came to me with a bottle. He's like, "Dad, the bottle was new. Like, look where it is now." So when I did a water change, like I think that's the yellowest water I had ever seen in the bucket. So I just like had to throw
instead of drop, you're just like got excited.
But if you can buy Triton in bulk, where you get the salts and you mix it up yourself, and that's cheaper. It's still not going to be like as cheap as BRS 2-part, but it won't be as expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get the single 1 liter cartons. You can get the 4 liter mixed. You can also get the 4 liter dry that you mix up yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the 4 liter dry is actually a lot more affordable.
Yeah.
I tend not to, with the exception of like iodine and potassium. I don't know why, but my tanks are always deficient in potassium.
Mm-hmm.
I will buy those from Triton Elements because the potassium is like a liter.
Yeah.
But I've sent in ICP tests in the past where a bunch of my parameters are like off. And you know what I did? I just did like crazy water changes. I bought Tropic Marine Salt and just did crazy water changes. Sent off another ICP test, and then everything was green. So if one thing is off, yeah, you can adjust. But when it was giving me reds and everything, I just did a bunch of water changes.
Yep. Yeah. Are you using ARM or Two Little Fishes media? I actually have both in my reactor, as well as Brightwell's Neo something or other.
Neo Mag.
No, but they have Lazarus. That's what it's called. It's a really weird name. It's like smaller particles, but I have that in my second chamber on the way out. So I actually have 3 different brands of media in there. So I have the special blend.
Never heard of that yet.
Yeah. I don't know why. Yeah, I couldn't find anything on it, so I decided to try some for fun. Then, but it's a lot smaller than the other ones. That's why I have it in the second chamber.
Ooh,
scrub off the rest.
Cora Lazarus.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the one.
Interesting. I still have my 2 little fish. Even though I took my reactor off, I still have some 2 little fishies media. I'm gonna hold on to that.
You should. It's handy. Use it for your recirculating CO2 scrubber.
I'm going to. I don't know if you can see, but I have way too much light for this. It's a 75-gallon tank, and at one point I had 3 XR30s on that bad boy.
You have
2 30s and a 15. I literally just swapped it today because I got tired of cleaning. I had them perpendicular, and so much light was hitting the glass. I had to clean the glass like every 2 days. So no, I don't think I have that. It's just 2 XR30s and a 15 in the middle, and they are horizontal. I think there will be less light hitting the glass.
That's a lot of light still.
But the colonies are not at a size where they need like to be wrapped in light or a lot of shading as yet. So I think I'll be fine.
In 3 years, maybe you'll want them back, and you'll want them front to back.
In 3 years, I think I'll have a completely different setup, or possibly. I don't think I'll be here in 3 years. So it'll be fine.
Yeah,
that's why I have all this light, because I was prepping for like a potential move. So that's why I was hoarding like, all this light in anticipation of. But I think you're the same thing as me. There's no way you would see like a new XR30 in a box and have it for a whole year without you'd find somewhere to put it, right?
Yeah, that's fair. I appreciate overkill, so I understand. Now you brought up a good point about cleaning the glass, right? So if the more light hitting the glass, the more you have to clean it. So that is definitely a consideration. And how you position or angle your lights is going to play into how often you have to clean your glass.
So the great example of what you just said is this. I have a NEM that I don't remember how. This is a 10-gallon NEM tank, and the NEMs in here are nice, healthy, good color. But these tanks are connected. But there was a NEM that got escape I don't remember how. I forgot what happened. But he's in this tank and he has a completely different color. It's from the same family, same name split. It's a completely different color. So I got the 15 to put over this tank saying, hey, if it has the same light, same flow, it should be that the tentacles are red and in the middle is like a dark green with orange speckles. No, nope. Well, guess what happened? I had to clean the glass every day. And then I said, okay, let me reduce it a little bit. And then I got interference from the TV when I was trying to watch TV. Then I said, okay, let me do a Hydra 32. Since I have a Nero, you do like a Hydra. Nope. Until I did an AI Prime, I don't have to clean the glass every day anymore. Like I was getting so much algae on the tank. So there is like up to a point where you can just have too much light and just get crazy algae.
It's true. And one thought I've always had too is if you had lights more on the two outsides and angled them inwards, you probably get a lot less glass cleaning. If I had a canopy, I'd do it, but open top, it just looks good to have it nice and centered and even. But 2 hours. This is a long one today.
I know. I didn't even seem like 2 hours.
I know. It's because we've fitted down many rabbit holes today.
This is like one of our private talks we would have where we're just talking about equipment and what do you have. And I don't think we've gotten through like half the stuff we're running, right?
I know.
So
it's true. It's like, oh yeah, run a live stream. This isn't just a phone call. Oh, I know. It's good. It's fun though. It must be late. Definitely later for you. All your tanks are off now. You're in the dark over there.
9 p.m. Yeah, it goes. I do 9 to 9. Yeah, everything is off. Kids are in bed. They came and they said bye, and that's why you don't see Christian bothering us anymore. So
he's in bed now. Wasn't just because we muted him. 50-50. He gave up. He's like, our messages won't post. Oh well, got what you got to do. Reef automation. What's going on?
Well, your tanks are doing okay.
They're doing good. Overall, really happy. My purple bonsai had a little chunk that RTN'd for some strange reason since yesterday. I'm like, WTF? But aside from that, they are doing fabulous, and overall, it's doing really well.
I bare bottom now. I think last summer I did redo the tank. I redo the rock, and I'm like, I'm going to try SPS dominant.
Yeah.
I started bare bottom, didn't like it, put sand in, and then took the sand out again. So
really?
Yes. I have a little sand in the back because I have some leopard wrasses. Actually, I put sand in a container, and by the wrasses diving in every night, it spilled out anyway. So I just have a pile of sand in the back. But it's just high flow, high light.
Yep.
I actually have a bunch of legacy, like soft corals and euphyllia that, my wife loves euphyllia, so we've collected them over time. You know what, Dev? I am of the opinion that if you have an SPS dominant tank and you just go crazy with the flow, you actually have an easier tank. Like, that's much easier than trying to do a mixed tank where you need to do high flow and low flow areas. Because whenever I have 2 MP40s, 2 Nero 5s, and a Nero 3. And when I crank them up where my euphyllia are pissed off and my torches are pissed off, my alkalinity consumption is higher and I get better polyp extension. Now, when I try to dial it down and make everybody happy, you kind of have to, you can notice immediately from your alk consumption that I'm not saying they're pissed off. They're just not as happy as when you're just giving them as much flow as they can.
It's true. I mean, that's why mixed reefs are tricky, right? Because you have high flow, high light, low light. You're trying to keep everything happy in the same environment. So having one specifically definitely does make a big difference. What's up, Saltwater Aquarium? Okay, what are my nitrates in the one I'm running the NitroGuard? Okay, so someone actually asked me earlier about nitrates. So I've been using Orca Labs, I think it is, NitroGuard. And it's basically carbon dosing, but it's like these little cubes, like sugar cube looking things. These little hard cubes that slowly dissolve and basically carbon dose your tank. And now this has actually worked very well because my nitrates, table of history, let me go back to it.
I'm so jealous, man. This is where I just,
Dude, this is the most amazing thing ever. Okay, so if I go back, February 1st, my nitrates were 55, right? Okay, so I started using this stuff from Orca Labs. It's basically carbon dosing. Now I was told by many people that it drops your nitrates fast, and I was worried about dropping it too fast. So I used probably a third of what they rate it for, right? So the container I used said for like treat 77 gallons. My tank's 200. So okay, so February 1st I was at 55, or no, yeah, February 1st, 0201. 03, 05 I was at 28. So almost in half. So I did it over a month, right? And then, where are we? So 0316, I was at 21. There's a bazillion tests in between because I test twice a week. But now they're at 14.6. So in February, March, so in 3 months, I went from 55 to 14.6. So I purposely wanted to drop it really slow. I didn't want to drop it too fast because that's, probably cause trouble. But so now they're getting down to that happy zone, right? So if I can keep it around 10-ish, I'll be pretty darn happy. Now, at first I added them and it wasn't dropping very fast. And they said, to really accelerate it, like you got to give it air. So I bought a little bubble plate off Amazon that sits on the bottom of my sump and just bubbles up into it. And then it's really started to kick it in after a few weeks. And it's been working very well. So yeah, that's basically what I've done for it. You can do vodka dosing, can do carbon dosing, vinegar, all that jazz. The thing I like about these is there's like nothing. It's literally like this little dinky air pump in a plate. And it just bubbles onto it. And they're just cubes that are in there. And they just slowly dissolve. And my nitrates disappear. So that part's been good.
Wow, I think I gotta call you and you give me more info on that because I have some,
okay.
I need to process that. But my question is like, you've seen all the crazy stuff I do when like I feed a ton of, like I literally went to BRS and Saltwater Aquarium and everything they sell, I put in my fish food. But with my Clarisy, like my nitrate, like right now I tested and my nitrates are about 10 and it's the highest I've ever been. So I find that, do you still get, even with your Clarisy, I'm just trying to see how your nitrates got that high.
How many fish are in your tank?
Okay, this is a 75, so don't judge.
Okay.
But I'm going to call them out.
Okay.
I have a Nassau tang, I have a gem tang, I have a fox face, I have 3 chromis, leopard wrasse, chorus wrasse, 2 clownfish, royal grama, firefish. 7. Well, how many is that?
It's a good chunk.
Okay.
So on mine,
somebody I'm missing.
I have a fairly big red sea sailfin, the Jarny sailfin tang. I have a big kibbo tang. I have a purple tang. I have 3 yellow tangs. Those like the bigger fish. Like I have a ton of fish in my tank, lots of big ones. So, and I feed with a shovel. So I put in a lot, and I have a lot of big pooping fish in my tank.
Yeah. Do you ever see like those Nassau and sailfin tanks? Like it's like almost like a bomber. Like when you watch those old World War II movies and like just spray bombers, like it's like that. You see the Nassau tanks like, yeah. It's like it just happens to do it in a corner where I put the LPS, so they love it. But it's like a dive bomber just. Yeah, they do poop a lot.
Yeah,
yeah.
They're definitely big poopers, and I feed nori every day. Plus, I feed tons of frozen food, and I randomly feed the reef nutrition and coral foods, and I feed a lot. And then, but yeah, no, honestly though, like the NitroGuard stuff, like I've been pretty impressed with how well it's worked. It's been a few months I've been using it now, but it's just been slowly, consistently dropping every week. So I went from crazy to happy.
I don't feed nori, but I put 100 sheets of nori in my seafood, in my frozen food, and cut it up. So I guess whatever that equals to, I get it super cheap on like Amazon or my local Korean store and just chop it up and put it in it.
Yeah, Asian supermarkets like $30 for like 200 sheets of like sushi nori, and that's what I use.
But then that's what I bought. But then even then, they're bigger than the nori we buy for. So even when you cut it in 2, it's still bigger than the sheet that you get. Like when you buy the 2 little fishies. Yeah, that's bigger, right? You cut it in 2 and it's still bigger than what we buy.
But they're half sheets, so I take those and then I just fold it and throw it in my nori feeder. I just accordion style fold it, and then it works really well, and it's super cheap.
Yeah, the one I get is bigger than like an 8.5 by 11, and even when I cut it in 2, it's still what you would, it's huge. And I cut it up, and I put a bunch of stuff in it too.
Yes. Do I have the container still? I don't know if I do. But yeah, one of those things. It's like little cubes, and
Oh,
it's been like some kind of magic for my nitrates. But I had multiple people warn me that like that stuff can drop it so fast, which is why I used way less, and I've been really happy I did because it worked out well.
hey, if I ever get to that point, maybe I'll. But I think with my Clarisy, like I don't. And I actually found out the other day that I had my Clarisy installed wrong. I
Mhm.
had the, I had the mesh thing running on the outside. Don't even ask.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, I
no,
know what you're talking about. Okay, fair enough.
yeah. So I fixed it, and I actually hear it running more. But I had a hard time with all the food I was feeding. You know, I still had 5 to 10 nitrates. It wasn't that high.
Yeah, see, despite all my crazy filtration, I still have lots of nutrients, and it's just so many fish in there, and I just feed like a shovel. But then again, my frag tank, my nutrients and stuff are super low in that one, right? So
Could it be that I just have the crazy flow, no sand? So I have like MP40 sweeping the bottom. So maybe that's why.
I have no sand in the frag tank, and I have lots of flow, so that could very well play into it. Then again, I've
Yeah,
had algae issues and other stuff I've dealt with, so like the whole bare bottom is definitely more of a pain in the butt. But in that
takes a longer
tank,
time to get going.
yeah, but in that tank, my PO4 is 0.08 and my NO3 is 7.87. So it's definitely a lot lower. That being said, I should probably do a little GFO because the PO4 is slightly high relative to the nitrate.
Did you know the Hydros has Wi-Fi feeders?
I've seen that.
Yeah, it works great, man.
That looks very similar to the other one I have.
Yes,
Nice.
it is. Yes, it
Perfect.
like
Like the Eheim.
David is on a stream, and David said, "Hey, the company that makes it for Eheim, they were already working on a Wi-Fi thing, so we just
Perfect.
went to them and they put the Hydros chip in it, and it works."
Perfect. I mean,
Yeah, and you hit the
some
yeah.
people complain about it that they do that, but honestly, I think it's smart because it makes the product cheap and affordable rather than designing it from scratch and charging double, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's smart. They developed like
So
a ton of stuff pretty
funny you
quick.
say that. So when this came out, there was some hoopla when another product was released when they were, when they basically like just put their name on something. And you know what the difference was? David was honest where this came from. He wasn't selling it like they went and did some background research and found the perfect spectrum and something. So this
Mhm.
was, yeah, he was like, hey, we found the company that did this. And I'm like, I already have this, the E-Time one.
Yeah.
So I knew how reliable it was. I like how you can just put it on the skimmer and it balances. So I put double-sided tape and just have it sitting
Perfect.
right up. Yeah, and this is $35.
Mm-hmm.
So I
It's
think what
cheap.
I'm gonna do is I'm gonna order another one and I'm gonna put like 2 different sizes food in it. And that'll be it.
Do you know what's funny? I bought the Eheim one like 2 years ago, probably for my Red Sea Nano, just for when I was on trips. And I took the front off just because it wouldn't spill, but it's in my closet, and every day I hear it go meh, and kick on. So it's been going for like 2 years on the same set of batteries. Lasts ages. But yeah, it still cracks me up because around like 3-ish in the afternoon or whatever, I hear that meh, and like 30 seconds later, meh, next rotation. Makes me laugh.
I like it. I like all the cool stuff that you can just attach to the hydros.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've already run out of like sense ports because of all the stuff I've plugged into it already.
So, okay, so that's another interesting with the hydros. You don't need modules, but you just
Nope.
need, but now technically, I guess the Sense is a module. But you can, it's just like a universal module, and you're on a port, so you just buy another universal module. It's kind of a way to think about it, but.
It, yes, but by
Mm-hmm.
default I have 4. I wouldn't be without additional modules. I wouldn't be able to add like sense ports or
Yeah.
solenoids or yeah. Hey, like I say, if you're gonna have one of those crazy setups like Derek, like don't do it. Hydros is not for you. I do, as someone who's using Apex for like 7 years, when I was first setting it up, I was like, I needed to do like an if, like I'm ready, like, where do I program this? Like you
Mm-hmm.
still have that, like, I need to program it. But then it was like, hey, I have a skimmer. Like, hey, do you have a skimmer overflow sensor? It's like, yes, it's plugged into port 1. It's like, cool, like you're ready. Do you have a skimmer? Like, what do you have plugged into this? It's like, hey, you have a skimmer. And it's like, do you want the skimmer to be off when the return pump is off? And I'm like, yeah, it's,
It's easy. If
yeah,
you
it's,
don't have that I want to custom code it mindset, I think it's really easy. If you have that, if this, then this, then this, and that, then it's trickier, right? Because you're like, I want to do this, how do I do it? But the interface is actually really easy if you don't think like an Apex. But then, like, that same thing could be said about, like, say, the GHL, for example. It's like, how do I custom code this? But then once you actually dig into it, you're like, oh, I can do this and this or this and this and but not this. Like, you can do all kinds of, like, crazy, even more advanced stuff. But the interface isn't as friendly. But you can do more advanced things. I don't know. It's honestly, it's a trade-off between all of them. They all have their pros and cons.
yes, you're being very generous, Dan. But the interface for the the interface for the GHL, it was pretty hard to get around the interface. I think that just
it took me a while to get it. Like, and I'm pretty techy. Well, because I'm like, how the hell do I do this? And then like, oh, okay, you gotta do the program, and then you gotta assign the program to the outlet. Like, I eventually figured it out, but it took me a little while at first. It was harder to wrap my head around just because I was so used to like the other systems.
Okay, to say you're techie is like you're an IT guy. Like, I thought, like,
it took me a while to figure it out. I'm not gonna lie, it did.
Really?
Like, I think the GHL is like fantastic build quality. I think their probes, everything is like awesome on them, but their interface is definitely trickier. And you got to skim through those manuals. You can't just completely wing it. You actually got to read through it. Okay, that's what I got to do, and then you can do it. So.
I think the other day when I was talking to you and you were mentioning like expansion ports, I was like, yo, that's like a computer. Like, you can actually add like expansion, like, yeah, like, I found that cool. And I saw somewhere where I think Keith Reef Bum like did something with relays with it. I was like, oh shucks, like, I don't know what that is. But I asked the electrician friend, a friend of mine who's a electrician, and he thought it was like cool. So there are things that it's good for, but I just couldn't.
No, that's fair. I mean, if you are techie and kind of have a DIY mindset, there's definitely a lot of more cool stuff you can do. But I mean, with most of them, you can, to be honest. Like, they'll have their expandability if you are on like the techie, electronically minded DIY stuff, then you can kind of work it to your advantage.
Is that the Saltwater Aquarium? Because
yeah, that's probably Ken. Yeah, it is.
My word. That's my words. I swear he heard me say that, because I did say those words. Like, I remember when I was in Macna, when I said that to, I forgot who it was, Klaus or someone, and I said, your interface, like, I use Macs. I use Mac for work. My company uses Windows, but I requested a Mac. Dev, I had to buy a copy. When I did buy my GHL doser, I had to go buy a copy of Windows in order to set it up. And I remember I was in Macna, and I was like, hey, man, like, it would be easy. And he's like, yeah, you don't need to hook it up to the computer now in order. I'm like, cool, that's exciting. I'm like, okay. He's like, oh, you don't have the right version number. I'm like, cool, like, how do I get the right version number? Oh, you have to plug it into the computer. And like, my heart just fell. Like, I was getting so excited. And when I heard that, I was just like,
yeah. So, yeah, I agree. The interface is more old school. Like, their newer interface is better than their old one, for sure.
Yeah.
But I do give it to them that, like, their probes and a lot of stuff they use aren't the cheapest, but it's very well made. Like, guaranteed, like, their freaking conductivity sensor is probably one of the best ones. Their flow sensors are the best ones. Like, their stuff's freaking expensive, but it's well made. But I agree, their interface could 100% use, like, updating.
And what you said to me earlier, I never thought about the fact that you said their graphs go back 6 months. Like, you can imagine if you're doing some kind of experiment. Like I said, if you were doing an experiment and you wanted to see pH or some interaction between pH, nitrates, and growth, to have 6 months worth of data, like, is awesome, right? I think that's So that's something I never thought of. I'm pretty sure the other two can probably do that, but the fact that GHL has that, I think it's. And I also love the expansion port thing. I wouldn't use it, but I thought that was cool, where you didn't even need a module.
So again, everyone has their pros and cons. Hydros can be Wi-Fi. I don't need to run a wire to my power bar. I can go put it down by my mix station, and it works. Neptune, I got to run a USB cable down there and connect them, right? And again, so it's both a pro and a con at the same time. So Neptune, I want to hook up a pH probe way over there. I can get that module, plug it in, and hook it up that way and daisy chain stuff, right? Now, again, that's kind of an advantage, but you also have a lot more modules, a lot more friggin' wires and stuff. So it's that, like the GHL, for instance, I can add another card, and I don't have all these modules everywhere. It's all built into one, so it's kind of cleaner in a way. But maybe my pH probe's not long enough. So they're all pros and cons. It all kind of depends. Yeah. Don't do AV plus with Moonshiner. Why not? I have some. I dose it maybe like once or twice a week. Why not dose AV plus with Moonshiner?
Yeah.
Fill me in, Farm Frags. I need to know this.
What's AB plus? Are we talking about? We're not talking about the lighting spectrum, right?
No. I think we're talking about the Red Sea.
Oh, I see.
Whatever it
Amino.
is. Amino acids. Thank you.
Yes.
But I also dose Brightwell's like the one for Coral Recover, I think it's called. I have that on a doser and do a small amount every day of that too, straight to the tank because there's aminos.
I think I have everything Brightwell makes. I went on a Brightwell spree.
Yeah, I got a good chunk of their stuff too. That's good.
Devin, wires and sounds are his enemy. I am terrible with wire management.
You're not wrong. I don't like overly clutter, and I don't like annoying beeps and sounds. I like my tank to be dead quiet. Brings me much happier. Yeah. What is Moonshiner? Reef Moonshiner is kind of like Triton in a way, and it's basically like trace elements. So it's like Triton. You have a bunch of bottles of stuff, and you dose it, and they are all your individual trace elements. So I'm going to lure them on a stream one of these days. It's on my to-do list. But basically, you do an ICP test, you figure out where all your trace elements are, and then you dose the individual elements to get stuff in check. So it's very similar to Triton in that concept. It's probably a lot cheaper because you get big bottles instead of little tiny dinky bottles of stuff. So it's probably cheaper.
Oy.
Yeah. Again, but it's a similar concept, right? They both have the advantage. You're more in tune with your tank. You're paying more attention to your tank. You do ICP tests a little more frequently, and then you see all your minute levels, and you tweak your dosing, and you kind of keep stuff dialed into those like pristine, perfect parameters. So I think both Triton, Reef Moonshiners, they both have that kind of advantage to it.
As far as you know, are they the only? Because as far as I know at this point, I think they're the only ones that do like a full line of all the trace elements.
Yeah,
and sell them individually like that.
Like Brightwell sells some of them individually. Like Seachem sells some individually. I don't think any of them sell them all. So I think Triton and the Moonshiners are the two that give you all the individual elements, and a lot of the other brands will give you some, but not all of them. So I'm doing a bit of a hybrid approach, probably just because I don't know, I'm cheap and I like to do something like that. But so I have all like the Brightwell traces, like the broad spectrum traces, all on dosers. Same with the Cato Grow and the Refugium. So I have all those on dosers doing a certain amount. And then I'm using the Reef Moonshiners to fine tune it afterwards. So I have broad spectrum, like here's like your shotgun approach with trace elements. And then I tweak all the rest, like little amounts, like, 0.15 mils of this one goes in. This is 0.03 mils of that one. A couple of them are a little bit higher, like 0.07, one of those 0.7 mils. So just like little bits of tweak on top of that. So
did you make those bottles like that, or did they come to be like? Because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, they come like this, and they have cool little caps. Oh. So I have a needle in each one, so I don't cross contaminate, and that's called bloop, and take it out.
So it came like that.
Yep.
Oh, for you to stick the needle in it.
Yeah, they came with little caps, super cool. But yeah, so no, I like it. So I use Brightwell for my broad spectrum, and then I'm using the Moonshiners to tweak the individual elements just to fine tune them on top of it. So that's what I've been doing. So that's kind of like my hybrid approach. So far, so good. I
use the Triton stuff because I have the potassium and stuff comes in. It's just iodine and potassium. My tanks have always been deficient in those. And Triton for those, they come in pretty big bottles. So I have those. But the other ones, and again, Triton is local. So I just like, going to the store and not having to wait for anything.
Yep. Hey, there's something nice to be said about walking over and grabbing it and not worrying about mailing and dosing.
And if people are going to give you in-person super chats, that's going to pay for the trace elements right there.
There you go. That's next level, Seymour. Next level.
Oh, there. Speaking of which, whoop, whoop, Dev.
Tracy, $10 super chat. Extra long live stream. I'll give twice a day. Thank you very much, Tracy. Much appreciated. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, someone who's just asking, how much do I dose of the Keto Grow? I will check for you right now. I am currently dosing. Once it loads, connect Bluetooth. Water box. The suspense. I am dosing 2 mils a day of Keto Grow. And Derek was talking about replenish, which he's asking if you're using a calcium reactor, should you be dosing on top of that? Yes, I do think it is important to. I purposely, at one point in time, when I reset the calcium reactor, I didn't dose any trace elements for like 2 months, and I did an ISP test, and it was low in strontium and a bunch of other stuff. So I do think you should dose trace elements on top of it if you don't want to go hardcore with all individual ones. Like replenish does work pretty well, and that's what I use in my bulk one. So I'm dosing 2 mils of replenish, 4 mils of restore, 3 mils of coral color, and 2 mils of coral grow, or Keto Grow rather. So that's what I have on my doser for trace elements, and then I do minuscule amounts of all the fine tuning stuff on top of that.
I don't use replenish. I have all the stuff that Dev just said. I have all of those, but no, I don't dose. I'm doing Trite now.
Yeah.
But any macro elements that I need to adjust, Brightwell and Triton is the only two things I have in my. But the coral color, all that stuff, I think I move them around. But yeah, I love the Brightwell stuff.
Yeah. What doser? I'm using the Versa dosers right now. So, like replenish is a good broad spectrum one just because it doses so many things. I'll feel like I'm reading an ad if I just read them all off, but there's a whole slew of stuff in here.
This is just Microbacter seed. This is Coral Amino. And these are actually the smallest bottles I buy. I tend to buy the big jugs in everything.
How many
coral color?
How many dosers do you have? I have 2 4-packs of dosers of the Versa, so I have 8 on my tank. And I would love to have more, but
I want more. I just can't get them.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
they're coming. But look at all this stuff. Think if I could put this on dosers.
Let me ask you a question.
Yes.
I had the 4-pack. I bought the 4-pack with the pack, and I ended up trading. Woody had the 4 individual dosers that he won on, experts. So I ended up trading with him. I gave him the dock because I just wanted to be able to turn my calcium off. It was too high. He ended up taking up more plugs, but I just wanted the flexibility of turning off. Yeah.
It's a trade-off.
But the dock was cool though, because it also had a level. It was so cool. It helped you, mount it. Yeah, I can't get I hate the fact that I can't just get Versas whenever I want.
You will soon though. You will. So first of all, because I had a chat with him about this because I've had a bazillion people be like, "When are they going to be back?" Welcome back, Battle OCR. So one, pandemic, and obviously half the staff, reduced staff, so there's not as many people working, and then they also moved to a new building, so that also kind of killed production for a while as they're moving to a new location. So word on the street is the Versas will be back soon, so it'll be good.
Yeah.
You stole them all.
Yeah, I need more because I just took the dose off the system, so that's 2 dosing heads I'm down. I'm down 3 dosing heads, man. I would love to have another 4-pack.
Oh, I would too. I'd love to have 2 4-packs and I could automate everything.
You have now. I have 5. And I do have 2 of the little Bluetooth pumps that I have to use.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah. I would love to have a bunch of them.
Yeah.
I like them. They're really accurate and they just work.
What I love is I can use the same pump for a calcium reactor, auto water change, or dosing trace elements. I don't need 3 different pumps and models, all matching, all look pretty. You can do high volume, or you can use 0.01 of a mil. I love that. I can do 200 mils a minute or 0.1 of a mil a minute, or 0.01. I don't know. I think they're super cool because they're very versatile. I guess that's why they're called Versas.
How often do you have to replace the head? Because when I was using them for like calcium reactor, I had to replace not the head. I meant the
The tube.
tubing.
Okay. Okay, so on my old Comore, I replaced the calcium reactor every like 4 to 6 months range. And I've been doing the same on the Versa. I haven't replaced my trace elements ones at all yet, but the ones that I use for the auto water change and calcium reactor I've done. Because those are the
I
ones that
had
are doing high volume daily.
I had a Comore,
Mm-hmm.
and I used it for probably 7, 8 months, and I already had to replace the cable after like 4, 5 months.
Exactly. Like
So I remember when I sold it at 8 months, I didn't have the extra tubing because I already replaced it. The Versa, the ones that I used for a calcium reactor, I've had to replace those. You know what? I probably need to go back and check my notes because I do take notes and see, but I think you might be right. But the ones that I've been using for 2-part, I don't think I've replaced those.
Mm-hmm.
The 3 for Triton, I don't think I've replaced those. It's the others that I've had to replace.
If you're dosing, you got to consider the use, right? If I'm doing 2 mils a day of this, I can go years before I have to replace it, right? But if I'm doing 2.5 gallons a day of water changes, it's a lot more use. Or if I'm doing my calcium reactor, which is like 50 mils a minute, so it's let me see how much I went today. Yeah, Comore was loud. So the Comore was the best option at the time, but there are certain speeds where it had like a harmonic sound. It was like a vibration
22
noise.
milliliters a minute for me.
To 28, somewhere in that range.
For you, it was 28. For me, it was 22. It made this weird buzzing, annoying, grind your teeth sound. So I had to go lower or much higher.
Yep.
For me, it was 22, 23. It was annoying.
So that's why I sold it, and that's why I got the Versas. And then I've been addicted to them because they work well. Okay, so far I'm dosing 50 liters of milliliters per minute to my calcium reactor. So 72 liters a day. So that's a good 72 liters a day every single day. That's a good chunk of flow. So that one I tend to replace every like 4 to 5 months is preventative, because if you're constantly that wear and tear, you're eventually going to wear down that hose. Either it's compressed, you're not pushing as much, or eventually the hose will break from so much wear. So it's preventative. Could you go longer? Probably. Will it break? Probably eventually. So it's just preventative. So trace elements go ages, but the ones that are like auto water change or calcium reactor, those should be replaced a little more frequently.
I will tell you though, Dev, that every time I've had to like tubing, like I'm a use it till it breaks type guy. Mm-hmm. But it's always I'm gonna use the stem. The stems for me, the stems just seem to work better for me than the push connect. I don't know why. Or if you're gonna use the push connect, I end up just sticking the stem. No, they come with a stem adapter where it comes with a pre-built stem adapter.
Yeah, this.
No.
Oh, what are you talking about then? What are you talking about, Willis?
Give me a second. You didn't. Oh man.
All right.
Dev, I literally just mounted this right before the stream, man.
Well, now I'm curious.
Oh man, instead of doing that, see, sometimes you need to use your brain before you do things.
I'm sorry if you broke it.
The old one, I went and ripped the Versa off, and I had the tube on the floor. This where the stem is built in.
Oh, I've never had those. I've only ever had the push ones.
Yeah, and these never, like I just replaced this preventative today.
I have one somewhere. Can't reach it. Somewhere I have one.
Yeah,
but yeah, I've only ever had push.
I've been using this since I bought the calc reactor, so I replaced this, as a preventative measure today. But these have never failed. It's always been the push that failed. So I'm gonna always go with these from now on. Mm-hmm. I don't even know if they, the first round of tubing had like single O-ring.
Yep.
Like Ecotech sent me these as like.
Yeah, now they have double O-rings because there was a few little issues of potentially.
I've seen it. So. I have pictures. I know the difference. Yeah, between interesting, because Devin got his during prototype.
I did. I had my original ones because I beta tested them, But
No, I
my hat was not from prototyping. This is when I actually visited them down at their factory like
no,
a year or
I
two
bought
ago.
mine day one, and I got the single O-ring,
Mm-hmm.
so it wasn't just a like prototype thing with the O-ring. It was everyone I think who got the first batch.
Mm-hmm. They're made in the USA. Yes, they are. They make them in Pennsylvania, where their factory is. And I
Yeah,
visited because I
I know that area well.
yeah, it's actually really cool to go check it out. Like they literally, when they say like made in the USA, like they legitly have big machines. I did a video on it. It's really cool. At the machines that like take parts and put them on the board and solder them. It's actually really cool to see. I've never seen manufacturing of circuit boards at that level. Especially see them do it in house was really cool.
Yeah,
So I thought it was neat.
Ecotech Korean is I know sometimes people get cynical. I've never been there, but I've seen videos from you and from Jake Adams.
Mm-hmm.
I know sometimes we're cynical and we say all this stuff is made in China. Like,
It's not
no,
though. It is
no, that's what I
made.
mean.
Yeah.
I'm not saying they don't get parts in, but like, yeah, some like we're all cynical sometimes. Oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
all Chinese garbage anyway. Like, no, they literally make the stuff there.
Oh yeah, like the vortex, like the boards, like it is all made in house. Like they have, go watch my video on it. I have a really cool one. And it actually shows the machines. Like, do you know that movie Lord of War when they're showing like the bullets all like being made and going in there? It reminds me of that. As you're going through the machines, like it's like brrr, and this big machine's like brrr, placing all the parts and it solders them, and then the whole thing melts it, and there's like another like solder fountain to put the bigger connectors on. Like it's really cool to see it.
Somebody else has a video. I'm not sure where on YouTube I saw it, but it was Tim Marks
Mm-hmm.
that was building a Versa before it came out, and he
Yeah.
was literally going through the bins and using the machine to like stamp
Yeah.
the chips and like assembling it with the tools himself. And he's
Mm-hmm.
like, we're still in early models, so I'm pretty sure by the time we're ready for production, these tooling are going to change. But he literally was tooling, stamping the thing in the like you just saw pallets and pallets of the parts, and they were putting them together in
Yeah.
yeah, it's not like, yeah,
Yeah. No, I don't know.
it's a legitimate company. It's a legitimate manufacturing.
No, it is. It is. I find it really cool. Like, I'm obviously a bit of like an Ecotech fanboy because I have like tons of their products, but they've been good to me. And I don't know, anytime I've ever had like an issue or something, like their support is like top notch. Like, I was like, oh, this is this. Like, literally, like a few days later, like, oh, here's a new one. It's like, here's a replacement part. Like, I don't know.
I am in,
They've been
I am
amazing.
I am in New York, so it's a one day turnaround time,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't expect anything free from Ecotech, but a lot of times like they'll fix stuff, and I hate saying that publicly because I don't want people to think like, hey, you get stuff. No, like I don't know anybody at Ecotech. Like I just know. Like I don't know anybody at Ecotech. I know who Jay Speradino is, but I don't know
Mm-hmm.
him. I've seen these guys at shows and I'll shake their hands. Like I don't know anybody at Ecotech. So, I've been accused before of like, you get free. I'm like, no, like they do it for people. Like
Mhm.
I would trust anything Ecotech makes because they'll stand by it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not cheap, but they stand beside it, and their service is like Apple-ish is how I'd compare it, right? Like, like they have really good service and they have like really pristine products and they stand behind it. So I don't know. That's why I've always liked them. But I'm not gonna lie.
100.
My first lights was a hard bite to bullet. My first two XR15s. When I went from like cheap China lights to buy those, it was so hard to bite that bullet at first. But I'm so happy I did because it got me down there.
My first lights, I got it from like a tank breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess whatever the guy had, he had the power supply sitting on each other. So they were all like, it was three or four Gen 3 Radeons, and I sent them to Ecotech.
Yeah.
And I was so nervous because I'm like, shoot, like, I hope they don't charge me so much money where like I can't sell it to make money. And like the light showed up like 2 days later, all fixed with new power supplies and everything. I'm like, huh? Like I opened the ticket and sent it to them, and there was no like, hey, we're checking it. Hey, we've received it. No, like they just show like one day to get to them. I guess they fixed them the same day and shipped them back to me. So
Nice.
I mailed it off on a Monday, and Wednesday, like UPS delivered, like UPS or FedEx delivered the package, and the lights were fixed, and they had all power supplies. And I was like, oh, it's like that. Okay.
Sweet. That's all right. Yeah, no, they have awesome service, so I don't know. I think it's worth it in the long term. Like, I used to be in the mindset of like, oh, I can buy two of them for that price. If it breaks, I'll buy a new one. But at the same time, it's a pain in the butt. Your equipment breaks, you got to replace it, and then you're just putting more stuff in the landfill, like rather than just buy one thing good that you never have to worry about. So it's a trade-off, right?
You've gone to farms, right?
Hmm.
You've gone to coral farms. What does everybody use? What do the pros use at their coral farms?
Yeah, it's true.
What a hint?
But even before that, like 5-6 years ago, when I was like a newbie reefer coming in, and like all the people I met locally that had really nice tanks, like most of them at Radions, I'm kind of like, that's honestly what lured me over. Like a lot of people I knew that I bought coral from had really nice tanks, and they all had them on there, and that's what pushed me over the edge originally.
Mm-hmm.
Spend-
Worldwide corals, unique corals, Reef
Mhm.
Co, New Jersey, the places I know that actually grow corals and like,
Yep.
they use radions.
Well,
Even if you even watch like some, like people's like even someone like, like Fisher Hex, who I
Mhm.
watch, like when he started, he used cheaper lights.
mhm.
But then when it became his business to grow coral for sales, what did he go to?
Yeah.
Radions. So
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't think, it's what the pros use.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It does work well. So zero complaints on that front. I like them.
Yeah, love them, love them, love them. I think I have everything Ecotech. I don't think Ecotech. What is Ecotech? A battery backup, actually.
Yep.
I think that's what I need. I think that's going to be my next purchase. But I don't
Yep.
think anything Ecotech like makes anything. Like I have AI lights,
Hmm.
AI pumps, radions.
Which are secretly eco-tank because they own AI.
It's- um, I call. No, I'm gonna tell. I called in because my Versa cable was having the shorts, and when I got support took care of me. I got the replacement cable in one day, but the invoice and everything said from AI, even though it was
Yeah.
an Ecotech product. So
I
if
know.
they were trying to not hide it, they're doing a terrible job.
I don't think they care.
Um,
But yeah.
Well, sometimes you'll see like Jay make a video and he'll be like one video he's in an Ecotech shirt and then the next one he's like a teal blue. I'm like, is he trying to fool? Like, what is it?
We are different companies with different shirts. But speaking of, I
but
was
yeah,
actually talking to him the other day, and I'm luring him on for something cool that's coming out from them soon. So, but anyway, so I've already roped him into a future live stream in the next few weeks. So
Okay.
yeah,
Anything cool? Anything cool?
I can't tell you yet, but yeah, it's kind of cool.
So you got the inside info.
Yeah,
I
I have many
thought,
inside infos. My lips are sealed,
Oh.
but
thought I was in the club, man. Ecotech, I thought I was an expert. I thought I was in the club.
it's not experts lad. This is extra top secret. Yep, I know, eh? It's good times. All right, Seymour, it's almost 3 hours. This is a
I
good stream.
know,
I could easily
man.
keep going, but we should probably call her soon.
All right.
So I have to make dinner soon for the
It's a
family.
pleasure.
It was a
To
pleasure.
everyone.
Thank you guys for the extra long stream today. John Reefer, Vermont, Tracy, Battle of CR, Damon, and Tracy for the second time. Thank you guys for the super chat. Oral, thank you. Coming on. It's been good.
Man, it's a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Good stream.
It was good. It
I
was
didn't
fun.
even feel like we were streaming. We were just
Chatting.
talking. Yeah.
I'll lure you on again sometime soon because it's fun.
All right.
All right,
I
buddy.
appreciate it.
Okay. All
I
right.
appreciate being here. Good night, everyone.
Thanks,
you.
guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. If you're not subscribed, you probably are.